Then I saw another mighty angel coming down from heaven. He was robed in a cloud, with a rainbow above his head. His face was like the sun, and his legs were like fiery pillars. He was holding a little scroll which lay open in his hand. He planted his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land, and he gave a loud shout, like the roar of a lion. When he shouted, the voices of the seven thunders spoke. And when the seven thunders spoke, I was about to write. But I heard a voice from heaven say, "Seal up what the seven thunders have said and do not write it down." Then the angel I had seen standing on the sea and on the land raised his right hand to heaven, and he swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created the heavens and all that is in them, the earth and all that is in it, and the sea and all that is in it, and said, "There will be no more delay."
Holy shit. You know, I feel like at this point I should be hearing like a Metallica album start kicking into gear, going like, and Kai's running up on stage, and his Tower Records outfit, and he's like slamming an electric guitar.
Slamming an electric guitar.
That's when the announcer says Guilty Gear Zex for whatever reason. So
why is it not like them and the Zex and X thing?
Ky Side has never once left my YouTube recommended, and I don't know why.
It's that good.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Hello, everyone, to the next episode of Talk to Me About, the Guilty Gear podcast where we talk about your faves and why you love them. I cannot believe we finally made it here. After so long, we were literally more than halfway through the cast, and we finally hit the Ks, finally hit the main character of Guilty Gear. I know, hey, what about Sol Badguy? No, it's Ky, come on. Everyone knows this. Even Sol knows this. He had a whole complex about this.
You know, it's true. He's like, damn, this kid's so much cooler than me.
I'm your host, D, although for today, because we have a very special guest, I am no longer D. I have shed my identity and taken on the gear self. Just call me Rock for today. Because I like Rock Howard. But that's for an entirely different podcast or series or whatever. But yeah, and I'm here with my co-host, Jay. Hi, Jay. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing great. I'm excited to begin Bible studies.
I'm so sad to say that, I am deeply sick. I am recovering from an ear infection that has, infected my sinuses as well, so I am full of fluid. But you know who else is, what's sick? Ky Kiske, he's sick. He's sick. Yeah!
Well, you know, this is... Yeah, this is the Heavenly Father testing you.
I'm not even Christian, but for Ky, I'll convert.
Yeah, you'll convert, just for a little bit. You'll swear an oath to the Pope. So that you can play Undertale with him.
Well, actually, some would argue that he follows Roman Catholicism, but it's never been confirmed.
I was gonna say that's the hard-hitting Guilty Gear facts and trivia that we need in Dual Rulers.
And that's why I'm here.
What sect? Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm also Roman Catholic. I'm rocking with you.
And so, to celebrate our conversion to Roman Catholicism and or other sects that we have not figured out yet, not Protestant at least, I think, we have 4 incredible Ky lovers. I know that there were a lot of people who asked to be on for this one, but I don't think you'll find people who like Ky and like Guilty Gear as much as these people, and I know if you listen, you guys will have a really good time listening for today. So let me start off by introducing Lore Extraordinaire, Wisteria. How are you doing, Wisteria?
Hi, I like Guilty Gear.
What? Get out of here! We can't have that here. Come on.
Certified fact check. True.
I'll see myself out now, I suppose.
Yeah.
Hello. A lot of people may know me more for being a Testament fan extraordinaire, and yeah, while I do favor them a bit more, I would say, considering my media tab, that probably proves true without me saying it. But first and foremost, before all of that, I've been a Guilty Gear fan for almost a decade now. It has been a pretty big part of my time in the FGC, and I also talk and write about a lot of the lore, the deeper implications and inspirations that come from said lore and writing, and I'm also a member of the Arc System Works Creators Program. So
very happy for you, by the way, on that. And also, good job on your recent Guilty Gear Magic thread. Or maybe it wasn't that recent. I remember seeing it recently, so that's recent to me.
Yeah. It was like a couple days before Frosty Faustings, and I was like really surprised by the reception that I got. One of those, it was like a quiet cliffhanger where like I could tell, okay, people are actually reading this, and even if it's not, even if people aren't leaving a lot of replies, I can tell that it's at least there's a lot of bookmarks. People are probably gonna revisit it if they need to look something up again, and that's kind of all I really wanted out of it, just to kind of now that my following is kind of increased since the last time that I wrote it, like, yeah, I could probably, I think they're ready for like a better, more improved one with a few extra details here and there about tuning and whatnot. So
definitely be excited for that then.
Yeah, I'm also a pretty big Ky fan. At least throughout the history of the series, his characterization and his story has really enraptured me, and the way that he's changed over the series. And when Strive, well, around Xrd Sign, I played him a lot, just casually. And when Strive launched, I started playing him mostly. I didn't get him get him to Celestial or anything, but yeah, that's roundabout where I went, just because yeah, Ky is cool.
One last
clearly,
thing. Oh yeah.
Clearly, you could have gotten him to Celestial, but you were being held back by the character.
Oh,
as we all know.
Yeah,
in
my heart, I'm Celestial, but I'm being held back by honest fundamentals Ky Kiske.
Yeah.
And next up, we have a Ky superfan, D. Donium. How are you doing today, D? You're the reason why I gave up my name today.
I am doing splendiferous. I am being beat up in game right now, though. Hi, I am D. You can find me as Dunium on most places, or Dunium D, because for some reason Dunium was taken on Twitter.
Oh my god,
don't know how that happened. Yeah. I'm big fan of Go, but specifically Ky. I mostly can be found helping out with, like, wiki stuff and all of that. I'm not really, like, an artist or any of that fun stuff. I'm mostly just, like, talking about my favorite little blonde boy and just the lore of the series in general. So that's the main place you could probably find me around.
In my brain, whenever I think of, like, who's Ky's #1 fan, and this is no offense to anyone else in this, you're the one that comes to mind first. Like, you
None
love
taken.
Ky.
I am honored.
It is true. There are a lot of people in the world vying for Ky lover #1, but I think, we're giving it to
for different reasons I've seen.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah. I'd say there are people here that probably love him just as much as me, but I'm honored nonetheless, and that was a nice air grab.
Well, no. I love Strive's lobby system. I can't watch this match. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's already started.
I'm so sorry. Hold on. We can let you in after this. My bad.
Yeah, you can let me
Once
into
we
the
hit
Ky
the combo.
club. Also,
Yes,
D, you've got the Ky shrine too, right?
Yes, I do like collecting things related to Ky, which has led to I misread which Ky I was on screen, which led to me having what I jokingly call my shrine in my room. I do like him a lot. Funnily enough, though, when I first got into Go, I was a Milia and then a Testament main. I don't know what exactly snapped in my brain one day. I think it was when I started, like, getting into the story. I
can figure it out. You liked the
Ky.
refinement of
You saw the
Testament, but
light.
you liked the blonde elegance of Milia, and they kind of morphed into one. And you also liked the gender of Testament, and that's why you ended up with Ky.
Yeah. I do think a big part of it, though, if you ever ask any of my friends, like, a list of characters I like, characters that are, like, similar to Ky tend to be high on the list, but I also love themes of, like, keeping hope and stuff in media.
Yeah.
So that definitely added a big role, giving, Ky's whole thing.
Now more than ever,
Being
that's that kind of
hope-related.
narrative rings true, you know?
Yeah. So that's definitely a big part of how I got attached to him. I'm gonna also back out so they can spectate. But yeah.
Thanks for coming on. And next up is another super special, super cool, super awesome Ky lover. It's Elk. Hey Elk, how's it going?
Hi. It's going pretty good. As mentioned, I'm Elk. I'm more on the fandom side of GG. I am hoping to get more into writing again, and I also help around the wiki quite a bit.
Oh, what wiki pages have you done?
I did a bunch of the text transcribing for GG Worlds, and I PNG'd a couple of the character sprites that you can see around gallery and stuff. If it is a PNG, there is a high chance that it was me fucking around on my phone.
Are you responsible for Trey?
I was responsible for the death gif, if you've seen it.
Very, very important and essential work that you're doing there, honestly, so mad props to you for that. That is something that I think low-key goes very underappreciated, even within the wiki circle, but I find myself using, like, all the time for these podcast episodes, so, like, personal salute to you as a fellow member of the Holy Order of Guilty Gear lore maintenance.
Oak
Wow.
personally descended from the heavens.
Wow.
I said I actually climbed up from the pits of hell, TBH. That is a level in Guilty Gear.
True! I rolled to the side from Purgatory.
Last but not least, the incredible, the wonderful Soren. How are you doing today?
Hello, thank you. I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be reunited with some friends that I have not seen since I fled Twitter. And for those who don't know me, I'm an artist. I may have drawn Kai a little bit too much. I got into Guilty Gear actually last year because of fate.
I remember when you were getting into Guilty Gear, you had the coolest thing I had ever seen, where it's like, because you were really into Kai, you were drawing out the move lists and combos, like, on paper, and then practicing them, and then drawing the little things with them. I thought that was so, like, you are an active learner. That is a skill not many people have, and it's incredible.
Right, my notes, yeah, because I have very little memory in general, and Strive was actually my first, like, fighting game. So I didn't know what a combo was. I couldn't do even a quarter circle or anything, and I needed to put it down into notes, and they're still stuck into my monitor because I cannot, for my life, remember combos. But the thing is that I got into Guilty Gear because my friend showed me the Fate fighting game and started showing me a lot of games with very cool animations. And then we got
is that
to
the one where
Strive.
Saber has the infinite where she slaps you 10 million times?
Yes, but also it's where Archer just goes like, I am the bone of my sword, and it's...
Yeah!
Yes!
Unlimited blade work
is so cool.
Yep.
So that inherently took me into Strive because it had very good animations, and the friend just lent me the game on Steam for a little while, and I looked at it, I was like, oh hey, it has story mode, and I clicked on it, and after 20 minutes, I called my friend, I was like, hey, when do I play? And they were like, no, don't, it's a movie. I'm like, what?
This is the gameplay!
And then I got that one playlist, you know, the one YouTube playlist that has like 9 hours of lore, and then I was hooked. And
I love the
thing is
cultural
that-
touchstone that is.
right? Right? And the funny thing is that I also was not a Kai fan at first. I was like, he's pretty, I like him. But I was just really into Jago and Sol, and you know, because Strive, right? Like, it's Strive, it's them. I was obsessed. And then I actually went back and watched all of Xrd's story cutscenes, and then I was like, I have been blind. I cannot. He's my blurbo. He's my blurbo now. And I didn't look back. And I think between April last year and like June or July or something, I drew like 73 days of daily Kai because I'm a normal person.
Haven't you ended up with like 400 Kai pieces or something? Like I swear to God, you were posting Kais literally every single day for like 2 years. Insane.
You have to be careful invoking Lore's name in vain during the Kai podcast.
I think I have at the very least 100 Kais, at the very least. But I don't know if there's quite 400. I have drawn 400 of my other Blorbos. I am known by being this insane. But right now,
Call that diligence.
Diligence. It's called love. I love him. And right now I'm a little asleep, but because I'm just saving the love for whenever the anime comes out. But
that's gonna be insane.
Oh, dual rulers.
Yep.
We can use this
A wedding?
We can use this to transition into a very interesting topic, very relevant. The fact that the trailer came out for Dual Rulers and it's like centered around Kai and Dizzy's wedding, and that like, oh, of course, nothing can ever go right in Guilty Gear. Unika's gonna crash it. I wonder what's gonna happen because we saw him like fighting her in there. His action scenes look pretty cool for what they were. I wonder if it's gonna be a repeat of Overture, where like somehow he gets locked in like stone, or like him and Dizzy are taken out of
Well, we
commission in some
know
way.
that the Overture writer is on the project.
This is true.
Oh my God! Wait, so he's our guy.
Yeah, we have our go.
I've played these games before.
I think it's incredible. There's a non-zero chance that maybe this time Kai gets frozen in the time crystal, and then we only refer
Please.
to him as the First King of Illyria instead of saying Kai because we're not allowed to because of copyright. the Maiden of the Grove.
Jay, what would you make like Ky Kiske's 4 kids' name?
Oh my god! Like localized or like his Maiden of the Grove equivalent?
Yeah, his
If it were, yeah, if it was Maiden of the Grove equivalent, it would just be the First King.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
Hi,
The king of the
King.
new world.
not as exciting, but
Sorry for Kai, though.
He's had.
Oh, we're
he's
allowed
had
to say
worse
that
lives.
now?
Yeah, we're allowed to.
we're allowed to
Yeah,
say
the timer went off like somewhere through Wisteria's intro.
Oh my bad.
It's
Oh,
okay.
I forgot you're scary in this game.
It's
Well,
okay,
no.
Mr. YouTube isn't here anymore. We can curse all we like.
I literally, that sentence alone made me lose
I
my
already
train of
pressed it.
thought. I'm really so real.
Derailed.
So, quick question for everyone: What is the number one thing you're looking forward to the most for Kai in the anime? Like, this is so exciting. This is post.
Dragon and Skull.
Yeah,
Yeah. True.
yeah.
I'm looking forward to that legally required death scene. I need another gift.
Gotta have another
That's
one.
my other claim to fame. I made all the Kai death
This
gifts.
is true. All those gifts I was sending out made every single one.
Collecting them like
But
the
it's
pieces of
out.
Exodia.
Do you mind letting everyone know, for people who don't watch the story but just like Kai for the gameplay, what do you mean by Kai death scenes?
So Kai is legally required, in my opinion, to die once per story mode. It started since Overture, if you
Yep.
count.
No, it
Kai in
actually
this game
started
as a
XX
death.
because Eno killed him in a
Where'd he
timeline.
die?
That is
That's true. Cyberman,
She got bored.
Cyberpunk, I love you.
She got bored and she was like, I hate beautiful
Yeah, so
men.
Kai is legally required to die every game.
They
And
love
you can
almost
find it in
killing
there.
them.
Maybe this would be a good time to transition into the Ky Kiske timeline. Swoosh! And starting with his baby boy life in the Crusades. The Crusades, for those who are not aware, is gears, which are magic cells that have been infused. Cells that have been infused with magic DNA from the U.S. government. Thanks, U.S. government. Thanks, Asuka. That have gone amok and have caused war under the control of Justice, a giant Gundam. And Kai was born in the middle of 200 years of war.
100.
And when he was born, he was in the time of wait, what?
100.
Sorry, Sol is 200.
Yeah.
100 years of war. And he was born with just in the middle of rubble, I believe. And at 5 years old, both his
Born
mom
in a wet cardboard.
born-
Found him in a
Cardboard
free
box all
kitten
alone.
box.
both his mom
True.
and dad were killed by gears, leaving him extremely angry, to say the least, and turning towards the Holy Order, which was the only resistance that are people that dress up like knights and try to fight them, because every other government has shattered completely, to stop the gears. And he meets Cliff Anderson there, an older man that sees him and says, No, you can't join. Look, you have to. There's a rule. You can't join unless you're 15, huh? So why don't you wait until then, sport? And Kai, being the vindictive, angry brat that he is, says, "Okay, sue me. I'm gonna do it." And he trains for the next couple of years until he's 15 to join the Holy Order. And I think immediately you get the impression, oh my god, this kid's fucked up.
May I interject?
Yes.
He was
Yeah.
10 when he
He was
joined.
10.
10!
You know what?
Right to the timeline.
Oh my
He
god.
joined at
Yeah.
10. He got around the age.
Yeah, like this is provable by the timeline because it says the year he was born and the year he joined.
Wow.
Yeah, he was
When he was 5, his family was murdered, and then the guy was like, "Okay, survive 5 years, and if you survive, then you can join the army." And there he
He
is.
survived 5 years.
It doesn't get talked enough about that Cliff has serious sins to pay for by not fully entertaining the idea of Kai leaving and hiring a 10-year-old to join the war. I understand that it was desperate and that what is it? I think there's only 2 billion humans left alive because everyone else has died. But that's kind of insane. And
Yeah,
I
I
don't
was gonna
think he
say-
ended up good for it, but
I think I'm willing to offer some leniency to Cliff because it's like, what's the alternative, especially when Kai is clearly driven by a desire to avenge his family, and there's not much else that's kind of tethering him to the world. At the very least, that way Cliff gets to keep an eye on him.
Yeah, I'm
so I think
I'm
it's
with Jay
reasonable.
on that.
I also
'cause
wanna-
if you can look into a kid's eyes in the middle of what is essentially no man's land when he acknowledges, my family is dead. I want to kill these monsters. If you want a even if he didn't think that it was going to be possible and he hadn't seen him fight, or if he didn't see like that spark in his eyes or something, like if you don't want to enlist a child, then you at least, I feel like Cliff at least had the foresight to instill some of that hope into him and just say, well, yes, you can do this if you can just make it until this point in your life. Whether or not he even believed that was possible. Like, even in the middle of war, kids need to believe in something.
I guess like that is something that he's learned from Sol, is that no matter what, you have to keep yourself alive.
Yeah,
and something that Kai embodies.
I get the thing. I get the reference.
And something I want to say too is that this immediate first introduction to Kai gives him an immediate rival, not with Sol, but with Testament, right at the start of the series. Because Testament is also Cliff's son, or sorry, this was before they
adopted
transitioned.
child.
Yeah, adopted child. And immediately they have similarities to Kai, where Testament is this pacifistic child, Kai is this aggressive child, someone that is looking to fight and end things. They both want the end of war. They both want to make Cliff proud as this new adopted father that they both have. But Testament fully subsumes themselves to the system out of, like, grief, I suppose? Like, a feeling of loss and anger. And Kai fully subsumes himself into, like, the system of justice, of righting wrongs no matter what. And I think that's really interesting that even in Missing Link, the very first game, you get Testament holding this tournament and, like, punishing Kai in a sense. Like, I will give everything to make sure my justice, literally Justice the Gundam, revives and takes over and subjugates everyone. And you have Kai who's saying, I will do anything to make sure justice is served and I will kill anything in my path. I think that immediate connection between them is kind of really cool, even if it kind of gets dropped off in the future.
No, it's a very compelling sort of dynamic that they have in that regard, because, you have Kai, who is, maybe on the surface the more violent and impulsive of the two of them, while Testament is a little bit more, reserved and passive, like you were mentioning. But then their ideals kind of speak to the contrast of that, where, like, Kai is obviously, especially earlier on in his life, a really big idealist and really searching for some external important thing to live by and identify some kind of coda that will give meaning to his life, whereas, like, Testament is focused on what is happening right in front of them. And I just think that that's really fun. It's not really something that you would think based on their general manner of acting early on in their life. So I think that that's pretty fun.
Let's also not forget that they were under slight influence from Justice during that time.
This is true. Oh,
But the cool trick of that, too, is that Kai was as well, but under false ideals. Like, Kai was fully believing, like, as long as I'm in this order, anything I do has to be justice, because this is evil, and I see it as evil.
Yeah.
And so, like, they're both inherently flawed, which I think is really fun.
Yes, no, I was gonna say, like, it is very cool how the tension doesn't serve to, like, just debase Kai or just debase Testament. Like, there's real credence to be lent to both of those philosophies of idealism versus realism, and that's something that you see repeated throughout Guilty Gear as a whole, where it's like, it's important to have something that you live by, but it's also something that should come from a real place. It shouldn't be so far removed from life that, you push the feelings and lives of other people out of the way. And it also shouldn't be that you get so caught up in the real and what's directly in front of you that you fail to imagine a brighter future and that you get overwhelmed by the despair of the day-to-day. So I think that that's really awesome. Also, I just wanted to loop back really, really quick, just to project a little bit. I almost want to balk at the notion that Kai, like, lived on out of spite for Cliff saying, like, oh, if you live, you get to join the whole...
That's spite, but, like, Kai had a goal that he wanted to accomplish, and he wanted to do it no matter what. There was literally nothing that could stop him. And it's something that, like, brings immediate ire with Sol later on, which we'll talk about later as well.
The other reading that I wanted to inject into that, though, is just a little bit of projection for myself, because I could, not to say that, like, oh, I could imagine myself being Ky Kiske, because I think I would fold under that pressure, I would have died. But I can so easily see, just saying, speaking myself as an autistic guy, I could very easily see a young autistic child being told something like that, and then thinking nothing of it, and just being like, oh, okay, I guess I'll live. I was given an objective, I have to fulfill this.
Yeah, you would think that, wouldn't you?
Yeah. No, I'm just like, maybe Ky, maybe he's a little bit just like me. Just saying. Maybe he's just like
would
me.
you guys like to talk about how Kai's behavior during the Crusades and what kind of soldier he was? And what you like about it?
Yes, I will pass it off to one of the others to go first, because I sometimes struggle to talk and play.
You're all good.
If one of the other two
okay, so a lot of it was kind of already said, you know. Fucking a lot of people don't really know, but yeah, Ky grew up like with no family in the order. Was not like kicked out, but declined joining the order the first time, which was probably one of his only reasons to live, only to come back later and do it. And yeah, he joining at 10, literally, and then becoming like essentially the fucking poster child for the damn thing.
Insane.
He like kind of crafts himself into like a living weapon at first, which is like, oh god,
yes,
Ky
is very much a living weapon. There's that quote in Xrd that Sol says about how Ky was just like fucking unfeeling.
Yeah, can I add into this?
Yes.
Feel free, Dave, feel free.
Yes, a lot of discussions with like when people talk about living weapon characters in Guilty Gear, they tend to like talk about like Ramlethal or like some of the like
Testament.
Testament, you know, like Sol, like the characters that were more forced into it. The thing with Ky is he kind of willingly became like that, which I think is a really interesting twist on it. And he even though he willingly kind of became like that during the Crusades, it's something he still had to unlearn with the help of another character that I'm sure we will get into later.
You can say Ky in a lot of respects is the ultimate soldier, and you can see in like even Roar of the Spark, which by the way one of the best songs in Strive, which highlights his entire life and his motto is that like the things driving Ky are faith, pride, and hope, which are all like things that you could say are like soldier values, and he redefines what each of those terms means to him as he progresses throughout the story. But initially, faith, pride, and hope, what those things mean to him is that he hopes an end to all evil. He wants to see, like, he believes in justice. He believes in like, eliminating and eradicating everything, and being the person that'll help save people. And that transforms. He's not an evil character at all, I'd say. He's very good. It's just, he's very unaware, though. And that's something that gets illuminated, especially throughout X.
You're killing autism.
Yeah, but it's so true, and it's something that you see kind of reflected with the other characters that we were mentioning before that kind of become the living weapon thing. Is that, you know, like you're saying, for Ky, it's a coping mechanism to try to sort of push down the trauma that he suffered at like he became a war orphan in the single most tumultuous time in human history at a point where like humanity was all but extinct, which is insane, and then also immediately started fighting in that war like before he even fucking hit puberty, which is insane.
To lend credence to him as well as like this good hero type character, other characters that had the same circumstances as him, Milia, Venom, Zato, they were all orphaned as well, and what did they do? They turned to the Shadow government and assassinated people, and they killed to survive.
Yeah, they didn't really seem to have a choice in the matter.
Yeah, it's just a matter of luck, honestly, I think, because it's about who finds you in that state.
Yeah. Elk, what was up? You sound like you had something?
Yeah, I think something that also why Ky gets avoided in living weapon discussions typically is like because like I said, he's one of choice rather than like or circumstance, and also like the elephant in the room. People don't know stuff about Ky. Like most people don't know that he was 10 to join the order. What do you mean? He's also a living weapon.
Yeah, it is.
I think, too, people don't really discuss the living weapon aspect of Ky too much because, and this is just a thing I've noticed in fandom circles in general, if someone doesn't struggle with something internally, usually it doesn't get brought up in conversation.
It's true, yeah.
Like, because Ky doesn't struggle with becoming this weapon, and becoming this sword, becoming the Thundersteel, which, that is the parallel in Xrd we'll talk about later. they don't even think to bring it up. Like, it's not important to them, which is wrong, because this is something he's deeply proud of. It is core to his character.
And as Elk said earlier, it's even brought up by Sol himself in Xrd.
Yes. It's just the fact that we don't get to see it in game, so people ignore it because we're meeting Ky like after this has transpired, basically, like when he's a little bit beyond that. But yeah, no, I think it's very easy to see how someone could fall into that when basically his only positive contact up to that point was meeting a holy order of knights. He's like, oh, this is great. I can be something more than an incredibly depressed and frightened war orphan and become the like righteous fury of God and strike down all my enemies. I think that's
it's something
very
really
easy
small
to...
too. But I remember in the webcomic there was a scene where Cliff was like, "Oh, this poor pitiful boy," and all I can think of is Ky does not see himself as pitiable at all. Yeah. Like, he just sees a problem that he needs to fix.
I think the other component of this, too, is the thing that you see with a lot of the other Living Weapon characters, which is a little bit of an element of obligation. Like, maybe even if not to repay Cliff, basically, for giving him a reason to live after he had no family, but then to extend what had been done for him to the whole rest of the world for other people like that. Because another part of Ky, I think that it's like a very core component of him, is that he's actually really deeply thoughtful and caring as a person. Because, like, you know, this is something that you see throughout his interactions in even the earliest games. You know, not just with Dizzy, but with other characters like Milia and Venom, where he's like, you know, so long as you have a conscience, you can be steered onto that right path. I think that that's a really good representation of, like, I don't want to say, like, positive religiousness, but like taking fun elements from conventional what people would think of as Catholicism, like, oh, like redemption, but in a good way. But anyway, the notion, like, that you were saying, that he has to be this beacon of hope for everyone so that, you know, the cycle can begin anew, is because, like, oh, I was going to die before I met Cliff Underson, and, you know, he showed me that there is something more to live for. So now if I don't do that, there's a problem. I'm being ungrateful. So I have to be, like, the best possible soldier that I can be at the age of 10.
Yeah. Oh, nice dragon stuff.
And now this might be a really cool introduction to start saying, hey, so when Ky was in this order and he was 10 years old and doing all these things, he's making a name for himself, and slowly he's becoming a really accomplished soldier, and people discover, wait a second, this Ky character, he has lightning magic, a unique form of magic that not many people are born with, and he can easily wield it. It's almost natural to him how well he can wield this stuff. And not only that, who takes notice of this bratty 15-year-old kid? Why, it's none other than Sol Badguy, who joins the order and says, oh my god, this place sucks! Oh.
I hate this damn kid. I'm Shadow the Hedgehog.
So, this is the introduction of Sol and Ky as a rivalry. And what do you guys have to think about that, and how they are as rivals and characters?
I think it's really interesting how much they are indirectly always, like, inspiring each other to be better people. Because, you know, obviously Ky gets the belt buckle element from Sol indirectly through Cliff. So there was always that element.
Sorry, not to be like that. Wasn't the belt buckle Ky originally, because he had that thing with the soldiers, and then Sol did it to mock him?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was
apparently
Cliff,
just
then
a order thing in general.
No, I actually know the story of this. So, after a really long-fought battle, and I believe the Battle of France, Ky valiantly saved everyone where he could have died, and this is actually where Eno goes back in time to kill him.
That's Rome.
Oh,
Rome,
that's
yes.
Rome. Fuck.
Getting mixed up.
But he slays a bunch of gears there, and it's really inspiring. Like, they were going to lose Rome completely, but he saves everyone. And while he's at his darkest moment, where he's feeling like all hope is lost, he looks upon his fellow soldiers and realizes, no, I can't let this happen. Carves into his belt buckle hope, which is raw as hell, and then, you know, RTLs the hell out of everything, and this inspires everyone so much that everyone starts, like, getting their own belt buckles and carving things into them, their own mantras in reasons to live. Ky becomes a beacon of hope, and that's what promotes him into being the leader of the Holy Order soon after. And Sol sees all this, and he's like, you guys are sheep. I'm gonna write free on here, because I like, Freddie Mercury.
They- I
I
Is this
don't know if that's
side
right.
black? That is not quite accurate.
Is it not?
Not to. No, he does ride the lightning all over the gears, though. The
Oh.
belt thing, as far as we know, is just kind of a tradition in the Holy Order. They never really say where it came from, is all.
Well, at least from what I remember reading, it was. Well, the whole it was because of the St. Elmo's fire situation, where the bolt of lightning that struck all those gears and saved like Kai's fleet of soldiers was that moment where they would have died otherwise if not for that gigantic bolt of lightning. So in like that sense of despair where he felt as if there was nothing else that he could have done, if like something that like was worthy of worship intervened during all of that, then like, well, what else is there? What else can I really do? And that's when he like reminds himself what it is that pushes him and keeps him moving forward. And it was during like a squabble between Sol and Ky, where he Sol carved free into his own belt buckle, mocking his like in the sense of their own rivalry, mocking him, mocking his ideals that he felt that he was being chained down to, and that's what kind of inspired more people. That's just
I don't need your
just
pants
what
at your pants.
I
I've
haven't
got
read
freedom.
that at all.
Huh.
Do you remember what this is? Because this doesn't sound familiar to me personally at all. That's why I'm curious. And I like reading things.
Not
Do we
really. I don't know if it was
know
part of a
Rox-
material collection or something, but that's just what I
Yeah, no.
remember like reading it. I don't even know if it was like a long.
Well, everything I
text
said was
post or
taken from
something,
the
but-
Wooly video, which was checked by Arxis, so...
Well, Gear Project was also working on
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
Wooly
that
video.
was one
It's
issue.
true. There is some misinformation floating around, so I'm
Yeah.
grateful that we have you guys on here to do the real fact checking.
I
I'm
mean,
not
no,
trying
Mrs.
to
Chan-
say that like anything that I know is like is fact. I just kind of like I don't know. There's some
I
things
don't
that I
think
know, that I think I know that I like only learned about however long ago that I haven't really touched up upon to like refresh. So who knows? I could be wrong.
But I will say, it's really funny that, first of all, that Sol does this to make fun of Ky. A classic Sol.
Yeah.
But also that Leo sees these two guys doing this, and is like, oh, clearly this is a trend! I'll write what is most important to me, pride!
Mm-hmm.
Gay rights, like,
Me.
thing.
Pride in
I
myself.
don't say. I don't mean to ever sound like actually. In
No,
fact,
yeah,
I
yeah.
hate talking about that. I just wiki brained and so used to like citing sources for
Yeah.
everything.
No, you're all good. That's important to do.
Yeah.
Especially like I was saying, for a character as like widely represented as Ky, it's very important that we're gonna make mistakes. So I really do appreciate people caring about accuracy and you being like, yeah, well, here's the actual thing. Good, because I imagine there are a lot of people with conceptions that are messed up.
So immediately with the introduction of Sol, you get this
Oh.
rebel character that doesn't care what anyone else thinks and does exactly whatever he wants. And Ky, the person who vigilantly follows and orders people to follow his instructions, because usually it'll always lead to victory. And this kind of leads them to clash a lot, because Sol does not like being told what to do, and Ky does not like having someone that doesn't listen. And that all comes to a head, of course, when the fire seal is brought up, which, long story with that, but Sol wants to steal the important relic of the Holy Order, unaware that it's actually Sol's to begin with. And Ky is like, well, you can't do that, you're not allowed to, we worship this thing, this is our important thing! And Sol's like, you're not even using it right, you don't understand anything in this world, ugh! And that's where they fight for the first time, and later on we find out that Ky was holding back the whole time, and Sol beats him completely, and Ky is like, oh man, how could you do this, why, no! And Cliff walks in and says, no, it's okay, guys, stop fighting! I wanted Sol to have the sword, it's cool, let him, and Sol leaves the order, leaving, Ky very pent up and sad, to say the least, like, damn, I guess everything I knew was wrong.
Unemployed behavior from Sol beefing with Ky here, not gonna lie.
Love eating with a 15-year-old.
Yeah. Like, get a job, Sol, the Lakers need you.
But I that as like the start of their like little rivalry, where it's like, oh yeah, they're both fighting over this sword. Kai has no idea what it actually is, but just knows he doesn't want Sol to have it. And Sol's like, why am I even going through all this like made up bullshit? Just give me my damn sword.
I think Kai knew what the sacred relic that creates the outrage is. It's kind of a thing. You know, there's the entire, like, there's that missing link arc of him getting it, you know, and it's like a big holy ceremony. He's got his little hair done up and shit. So, like, he definitely knows what Fire Seal is.
Yeah. I just don't think they know that they can use it as a fancy lighter.
Yeah.
Well, they could. It was known that they were separate weapons that worked as weapons. There was just bullshit reasons why the UN wasn't using them in the war to begin with. So he knew what it was.
I don't remember where in the timeline it is, but I know that Cliff then gives Kai the Thunder Seal, which is another relic of the outrage that Sol made. And I like the implication in the Xrd that it's like kind of biological, or in some way where it regrows or like connects itself to its user. Because like this sword becomes very symbolic to Kai himself.
As far as I'm aware, like I feel like if I talk about like lore history, especially like a portion that's been like very loosely discussed in the series itself, I'll just start it with like, as far as I'm aware, that was like almost at the exact same moment, if not during the same day, when Kai was feeling more defeated at Sol leaving, even if he allowed himself to do it and didn't want to just straight up kill him in the middle of the fight. Cliff recognized his sorrow and his ideals beginning to waver in that sense, and because of all the guilt that he's like seeing, had guilt, knowing that he was the one who kind of sort of like brought him into this world of war, like, or gave him the opportunity to do so. He felt that was the right opportunity to give him the Thunder Seal and bestow his rank over to Kai, just kind of thinking, taking a back seat when it comes to like frontal attacks towards the Gears, or how they would like go throughout the war, and knowing that like if he still has this responsibility, and if he still has the drive to do something and to inspire hope, then that could be like, if anything, that could just be more of a reason for him to keep on going, despite everything that happened during that day. So it kind of worked out, but still, like, if you like threw that idea out there, you know, prior, like seeing this distraught child who just got beat up by Sol, you know, before leaving, and just thinking, well, it's over. Like, I can't do anything. I can't inspire hope. Like, am I wrong? Here you go, kid. You're in charge.
Yeah.
Wait,
this'll help.
Did it sound like you had something to chime in with?
I was gonna say, like, I could be corrected if I'm wrong, but I've always understood as Kai gaining Thunder Seal, and this was kind of mentioned a bit already, as like, when he became the leader of the Order, he was given it, because one, it's like, you know, a big important thing, you might as well do a big important ceremony along with it, and then it kind of helps assert it's like, guys, don't pay attention to the fact that he's 15. Look at the cool sword he has.
Cool sword.
Yeah, that's
I always really like the implications that he talks about it in Xrd too. The way Kai felt about all this is that he was like, my uniform always felt too big, and my sword always felt too big, and I felt like I was throwing big shoes. When did I stop feeling so small? And it's like, that's so sad to think. Oh my god.
He was kind of deprived of an adolescence through that, because
like,
of all the
he had no
responsibility
childhood.
I think also a part of like when he's talking about his sword like becoming short, I think he's also talking about like he thought he could do anything, and all of a sudden he just realized how little he can actually do.
And that's
I agree with that. Because like during this era, Kai was a lot more, I'm trying to think of how the best way to describe it. Rash. Like he was very like in battle and stuff. When it came to like planning and stuff, he was very well thought out. Very, like, sees things through, but with his own emotions at the time, he was much more rash than we see in, like, Xrd and Strive. Like, back then, he that's why he wants to fight Sol at any given opportunity.
The reason why we can see him as like boring guy, the honest shoto man now, is that he had to train himself to calm down from like the guy he was as a kid.
Yeah.
He ascended the throne. He could not be acting like that in public.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had his
Also
ideals
other
tempered
reasons,
multiple
but you
times
know.
by-
They hated it.
A bunch of different people. But yeah, just to circle a little bit back with his first few encounters with Sol, I think it's also a good thing that highlights kind of the failing in his early moral philosophy that, like, you know, there could be someone who is so capable that views the Holy Order not as like a form of deliverance that is like divinely important that everyone should adhere to and pursue, but instead a restriction, and that frustrates Ky because he can't reconcile that fact. And then not only that, to constantly challenge Sol and then kind of get frustrated with Sol for underestimating him. Like, you see that in a lot of his lines during the story modes against Sol. Whenever they fight, he's like, "Oh, you know, you're underestimating me. Like, I can handle this." And then still to be holding back in all of those fights, as like he's doing that to Sol as well. So a lot of hypocrisy going on because of the tumultuous nature of his early brain.
I do also want to say something with like early Ky and Sol interactions. Like a big part of Kai's narrative is like learning that the world wasn't black and white, and
Yes.
Sol was definitely a very early showing of that. You know, because you know you're either in the Order and you did shit, or you were a gear and you were killing shit, or
Which
you were
is-
someone that you had to be protecting.
Yeah, which is funny because
Very funny.
it is implied Ky has known that Sol has been a gear since approximately, like, I think Missing Link is when they imply it, but like very
in
early
the
on the
webcomic,
series.
they have him learn about it when Justice is defeated, and
Sure
Ky
is in that
briefly sees him turn into a gear, but passes out shortly after.
But the thing is, he never sees, to prove Elk's point, he straight up says he's never seen, like, Sol as anything less than human. So it really just, like, proves Elk's point that Sol was definitely, like, one of the jump starts to his changing worldviews.
I think it's that Sol was such a perplexing flame in his mind that it's just like, no matter what, he couldn't see him as anything other than opposite of anything he had believed before. Like, and it's that thought that, like, pushes him so far and causes him to change so much. Like, these two are instrumental to each other.
Yeah. The other thing, though, is, like, despite being so staunchly devout to the notion of justice, it doesn't mean that, like, his conception of it is immutable, because, you know, after he goes through this, and then later when we meet him in the first few games, like, he's already showing signs of having changed. You know, like, the quotes that I picked up are, during the fight with Testament and Justice, he's like, "Oh, that's a delusion. What God ordains and wishes for, that is the order of the world. That is justice. If anyone or anything attempts to deprive the world of its freedom, I'll defeat them all. No, you can't die yet. Who? Wasn't I doing the right thing?" Where, like, he immediately has a crisis of faith when he recognizes that, like, justice is a thinking creature that can suffer. And it's like, oh my god, wait, am I just as bad?
Good time to jump forward from the Crusades, I guess, to Missing Link, which is a huge time skip. And I think Ky at this point had joined the police because he was like, after the Crusades ended, he's like, what purpose do I have now? Like, what do I do now? And he's just shafted into the system because it's a cruel world, and Kai's like, well, I guess these are the people that help people still. I guess I'll be a cop, sure. And the series of events that's leading to the tournament, and then leading to Justice's resurrection and testament, and like you said, Ky having this huge crisis of faith, and having to stop and listen to people that he can't just mindlessly seek to destroy anymore is kind of huge. Like, the very first game in the series, you're like, all of your main characters have crises of faith, and, like, some of them are dying and things like that. Like, Missing Link is such a weird little game for the
A very
first game in a
challenging
series.
sort of game for a fighting game, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, here's your Ken clone, your Ryu clone, and he's, like, contemplating his morality. Good job!
Yeah. You made the red karate man think about if he should really give up fighting immediately. But yeah, no, and you see
a
this.
lot of credit for.
You see this represented with a lot of his other quotes in Missing Link in X as well. I mentioned it a little bit earlier on, but his win quote against Milia in Missing Link is, "You've left the assassins, let me assist you." So like immediately he's already kind of broadening his horizons and thinking like, okay, maybe there is a path to redemption even for the most seemingly irredeemable people that, you know, he would otherwise really hold a lot of contempt in his heart for, being the Assassin's Guild. And then his win quote against Justice in X, I think, is really good. Is, "So this is justice, the source of all of our woe. What sorrowful eyes." So like literally the single individual responsible of killing his family, pretty much, he still can't help but feel a little bit of sympathy towards. And I think that really sets him up organically to lead into how he starts feeling about Dizzy. But I don't want to jump too far ahead. Because I also wanted to mention.
Before we start moving along, is like, do you guys have any missing thoughts or anything?
Not really missing link thoughts. More so just overall thoughts on the dynamic, pretty much between like Sol and Ky and how that moves forward and how that develops. Because like it is one of the like core elements of the series that has persisted since the first game, and they imply like has almost always existed. So and that's just how you market it forward, because it's a fighting game. You've got to have some kind of rivalry moving forward. So I mean, I'm not gonna jump too far ahead on like how that develops, but like at the very least, the thing that kind of separates the two of them the most for me is the way that it sticks out from other rivalries in fighting games and how they exist. Whether it's, I mean, it's very easy to convince people that like two forces are like meant to oppose each other, whether it's like their color schemes or like what they're wearing, how they act, or how they move, pretty much. But usually there's not a whole lot that kind of moves on past that. I'm not saying that's, oh well, only Guilty Gear does it right, but at least in a lot of cases, you have that kind of catch at the very beginning, but you don't really have a whole lot of, it doesn't stay the same necessarily, but also develop further on. So
Sol and Ky were so good, they made Sol and Ky again with BlazBlue, so, you know.
So, my main thoughts were like all kind of hit like about Missing Link is kind of like, as said earlier, the first time well, Ky's like word views start to be shown to be like shaken, which I think is really interesting that they did that in the first game of the series, which is fun. My other thing that I was kind of thinking about when his like quote against Justice being read, it was mostly just a thing about the series. I realize it's funny because it's funny that most like outwardly religious Ky actually is in this series outside of like imagery, I realized. Because in the other like 2D games, he makes Sonic Cross, all of that, but he doesn't actually outwardly, like in a lot of his lines, mention God past Missing Link and stuff that's not extended media. So that's just an observation
I think that might be more that Daisuke himself is not Catholic, so he just assumes like it's like Ky does have crosses, he does kiss his cross, and in Strive he does, you know, exist under the sacred briars, akin to Jesus. But I think it's that like maybe Daisuke just doesn't know how else to incorporate it.
Yeah, like I said, I know it was more of a series thing than anything. It was just a funny observation I had while people were talking.
Yeah.
I mean, if kind of funny that like the BlazBlue comparisons are already coming up, because like a lot of, in the way that Guilty Gear brings up a lot of like symbolism for or concepts from Christianity and using air quotes here, pagan beliefs, BlazBlue kind of goes a lot more into Buddhism and stuff like that.
Yeah, they do more of the Japanese stuff with like Kagesuchi and
Amaterasu and whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't know much about BlazBlue.
BlazBlue is its own can of worms. Like that is that's not something that we should even dare to like get into right now.
Yeah.
But
that'll be for 3 years from now.
No, I don't care about BlazBlue at all. I'll be honest.
Admittedly,
that's one. I'll get you one day. But another thing that kind of speaks to me a lot more between the two, past their initial like butting heads or whatnot. There's a lot that is kind of. I think that it would be hard for Ky to exist. We call him the main character in a lot of sense because him and Sol do change a lot, but Ky is kind of pushed forward a bit more in the world, I should say, despite Sol
Ky is the main
saving
character
the world
of the world,
sometimes.
and Sol's the main character outside of it, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I still, despite the a lot of characters like treating him in that same way for like how he develops early on with the way that they're introduced, I'm not sure if Ky would be terribly popular on his own without Sol existing alongside with him, because the archetype that Sol embodies, at least in the world around him, and at least what Ky represents, is like you already mentioned, the rebel, but in a very seemingly uncaring world that has only gotten to where it is because of the folly of humanity that he has kind of turned away from physically, but also like he is a loner, he is a rebel, he does not answer to authority because he knows what that can bring. He has tried he's tried to work in that sense, and
Ky is a character that has been done before in other forms of media, but the point of Ky is that he's more subversive in like where he exists, like what he goes on from that initial depiction of like, oh, the sacred knight, like that's a character we've seen before. Like I said, the boring righteous karate man is something that Daisuke explicitly used the imagery for when creating Ky. And I think that's purposeful, like that Ky is not immediately eye-catching, that people get the wrong impressions of him, because people in the story constantly get the wrong impressions of Ky as well. So yeah, LD, Soren, did you guys have any like other kinds of thoughts you had about Missing Link before we ended up moving on to Guilty Gear X?
Everything that has left my mouth has left my memory in this statement, so I'm gonna assume I said everything I wanted to say, because take your ADHD meds, kids.
True.
Yeah, it's okay. The fandom will not like my opinions on Missing Link, so I will just vibe until Overture.
Fair enough.
You're like Ky. You're in your like stone chrysalis right now, just waiting to emerge.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So moving on from Missing Link, then we got the Jay.
Well, I was gonna say, did Elk not have something?
Lamo. Yeah, well, I think some of my stuff had already been said of, like, of challenging, like, I forgot the official term, but secondary main characters, like, Owen belief system in the first game is a wild move to pull, and especially having that shake-up maintained with him throughout the rest of the games, as we're gonna see, is, like, crazy, especially a character like Ky, whose like core character traits back then especially was just how strong he believed in his beliefs, because low-key after the Crusades it was all he had left. And everything, so it's like, it's crazy that they're like, yeah, we're gonna put this man on his head game 1. And we're gonna keep it canon.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I think any other fighting game series, they'd be inclined to walk that back, like how you see so often for when they do cool shit in like Street Fighter. But fucking Guilty Gear, you don't get to meet Ky when he was at his most dogmatic. Like straight out the gate, we're rewriting how he feels about the world.
Yeah.
That we can accept that just as the same as we can accept a lot of different rewrites or retouches to certain details in some of those earlier games that, you know, would be a lot better if Justice was a woman instead, and if Sol was in love with her at some point. See,
What's that one?
This is great, but it would be
What's
better.
that one design document that was like every Guilty Gear final boss is a woman?
The famous Guilty Gear document that also establishes Leopoldin as a woman, because Daisuke was like, oh shit,
like one specific part was a woman? I can't even remember.
The dog.
I'm not a Leopoldin head.
The dog that controls it is a woman. Very important.
Sorry, Leopoldin fans out there.
Yeah, it's just me.
I'm a fake fan.
It it's funny when you painted Kai's story
Oh.
and how much it changes at that point, because it's almost like you're reading Dante's Inferno before you read the Bible. Like, you just have zero context for anything that came before.
That's, I think, a very good analogy. But yeah, if we also wanted to get back on talking about Sol and Kai's rivalry.
But I was going to make a Dark Souls reference.
Well, what Dark Souls reference? Now I gotta know.
Oh no, like not like, oh, this is Guilty Gear is just like the Dark Souls, like, but like the way that you are so you're introduced to a world that has already like existed at its peak, however many years ago, and you're just kind of seeing the remnants of what happened at this point in time, just through other people's ideas of it. Like it's yeah.
You get to like.
That's
learn the
something I
history.
like.
I agree. It makes the cast feel more alive that you get like the retrospective histories. Like, oh, it's implied that they've known each other and that they've done all of this already. Like, I'm not just walking into a new world.
How deep does it go?
Mm-hmm.
So you can quote me in saying that Guilty Gear is the Dark Souls of fighting games.
Okay.
Sure, whatever. I don't give a shit.
My brain just started going, Guilty Gear is the Dark Souls of Guilty Gear.
True.
Guilty Gear missing link is the Dark Souls of Guilty Gear.
It kind of is,
No,
let's be honest.
Overture is the Dark Souls of Guilty Gear.
Overture tragically is the Dark Souls 2 of Guilty Gear.
Yeah.
Only if you're a coward.
Yeah.
People will fight you over that one.
but am I wrong? That's the important thing.
No, but go on with what you were saying though. Jay.
I was just saying to loop back a little bit to the instrumental role that Sol had in like shaking up Kai's like stringently held morality.
It's instrumental Guilty Gear.
But
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
If you had something specific that you wanted to mention about that, Elk.
What was Soul? Wait, repeat. Sorry, I was getting my ass like DP'd.
Fuck up your DP and DP. No, I was just saying.
Dragon Punch.
True.
Vapor Rust.
The
I thought it worked.
the way that Sol like showing up, being mad at him, and then leaving the Holy Order just kind of like helped to rewrite Kai's stringently held moral code.
Yeah, I feel like the most I have to say about that is actually like when we get to Xrd.
Oh yeah.
Is it interesting point gets raised?
Mhm.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, my main thing, like, when it comes to Sol and Kai's rivalry through the series, like, I have the most to say around Xrd as well, so I'm, like, holding it in, because mostly I love how it changes throughout the series.
Agreed. Yeah.
I'm cool with talking about their rivalry a bit early on, because I think that early on is when you really have those that foundation built of who these characters are, what they believe in, and while that for the most part stays the same, or at least they're dynamic with each other, they evolve so much as characters that they are still so recognizable, and yet they've changed so much throughout the years. So I could probably yap a bit about their rivalry and then like take a backseat for Xrd, because like, mostly just the fact that they are foils for each other so well, especially when they are both almost always fighting for the same thing, or they almost always can come to the same conclusion as to what needs to be done, or what end needs to be met, and just the ideas that they have going into it, or the ways that they would choose to go about it can change. And it's the depth of that I feel lets them stand out a bit more as opposed to other fighting game rivalries, which I'm not going to say that Ryu and Ken or Scorpion and Sub-Zero have like zero depth, but I distinctly remember like one of the intros for like Mortal Kombat 11, I want to say, is Sub-Zero, Scorpion saying like, tell me, did you murder my family and clan? And Sub-Zero literally just going, dude, we've solved this like 10 years ago. And he's like, I don't care, I don't trust you. Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Like, but their rivalry stands out so much to me. and like sticks with me so much more, just because their idea it's very much always been a clash of ideals and the depths at which their emotions weigh into what they're trying to say, whether it's their own personal histories, their own biases, and you get to see them lift each other up to develop as characters back and forth almost throughout these games. And I know that that'll be described a lot more in Xrd, but at least a lot earlier on. The perspectives that Sol has, most notably, it was with that talk with Justice, which has been like debated on whether or not it was canon in any particular context, whether it was just an arcade route or whether it was like shown off in the extra manga or whatever. But another layer added onto that is just Sol's opinions on order, and how freedom is not necessarily defined by order, and that might not have been something that God would have wished for, if anything, you know.
Yeah.
And especially when he starts to see him as a gear and a human, and you throw Justice and Dizzy into the mix, then, well, if you follow the teachings of Roman Catholicism, then like beings that were made by man could be seen as a defiance to God, and so gears likely don't have any right to be loved or to share that love of God to an extent, which potentially could have like amplified his hatred of these monsters, these evil things that stand in defiance of our order, our hope, our freedom. So the way that develops over time, like, oh well, does showing compassion towards gears, like, could that be considered like an unforgivable sin? Can God love and forgive anybody? And believe it or not, life has to respect life, and sometimes the path of sin or indulging in sin is occasionally like the only path that one can walk to protect the ones that they love or to survive. And through those teachings, that then redemption can come from any of those who continue to walk that path and still believe and hold those beliefs to themselves, even if they are shaken, even if they are skeptical towards the world that they are in. I wrote a bit of a piece on this more around sin a while ago, and how Sin doesn't really think too much about these bigger grand ideas, but he still holds true that there is a beauty and a compassion that exists in the world that anybody can observe and recognize as beautiful, as something that is worth loving, and just know that that is enough of a reason for God to exist, and that's all the reason that he needs, even if he doesn't have the words to explain it himself. Ky follows those beliefs a bit more stringently, but he is allowing himself to let others, to let the world, as he experiences more of it, reshape how he views his own faith, his own ideals towards hope, even if he can be viewed as stubborn towards those ideals many times, especially by those who have seen him at those earlier stages, like Sol or Potemkin, for example. Anytime he like defends the honor of humanity, like, no, asshole, look at this scorched earth where nothing can grow again. Your men, your religion did that, so why should I, etc., etc. So by experiencing that, by like their rivalry existing, and for him developing more as a character, and growing to learn that gears also were given the loving hearts of humans, and so they exist as like a representation of God's love and forgiveness to all. He is able to open himself up more to those who are struggling with their own identity in that sense and be a more open, caring person, even if they do not like see eye to eye on everything in that same sense. So
Yeah.
that was a long spiel, and I apologize if that kind of like
Oh, you're good.
went
You're so
away
good.
from what we were talking about, but it's something that I feel is it's something that you can it's something that has a deep psychological connection with me, and I know a lot of others, and I feel like that's also intrinsically tied to the fact that Guilty Gear is heavily inspired by music and bands and musical theory, which can be appreciated by people whether or not they truly understand the deeper meaning of it. So
Yeah. I feel you on that. It speaks to the growing up with a strained, weird sense of morality because of my own personal Catholic guilt and trying to reconcile. I actually had a quote on the subject of, like, you know, the value of tempering your metal through reconciling and you know, being cognizant of the fact that you've sinned, unless somebody else had something that they wanted to say before I got into that.
No, continue. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
Continue.
I'm interested. Continue.
Yeah.
I'm good for a bit.
I mentioned it a little bit earlier on, but I think like what you were saying gets shown exactly in the text too, with Kai's win quote against Venom, where he says, "Conscience is born from your past mistakes and making things right. If you exhibit such conscience, there will always be someone to take you in." So pretty much stating directly that even though, you know, he seems like somebody who has such a dogmatic belief in good and evil, that even he so early on is beginning to recognize, like, oh no, it's actually a more monumental thing to have sinned, to have follied, and then after that choose to believe that you're worth redeeming and that you can do right afterwards. And you see
Right.
that, like I was saying before, maybe it manifests through how he feels about Milia, how he feels about Venom, how he feels about Sol, and then to a greater extent, I think, how he feels about himself once he starts interacting with characters like Dizzy and realizing, like, oh, maybe I'm also owed a degree of a normal life and happiness, and I don't just have to be this instrument of divine wrath.
Oh yes, I agree with that very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I could add like one thing, I feel like that is also part of why people really love that one Rev 2 after story with him and Sol, because despite like Sol being throughout the entire series terrible at explaining himself and what he really wants at the end of the day, and just wanting like an easy solution to, like, you know, get cut to the chase, pretty much, like avoid small talk or whatever. You could still see that there's a bit of Ky where, like, it's not like he's forgotten or he's discarded the part of himself that was, as Sol described, was a ruthless killing machine on the battlefield that just worked on precision alone. It's more you could interpret that as part of that guilt that he looks back on, the person that he was at that point, and how he has moved beyond that, and how he knows the value of not only restraint but of lending out that hand and compassion, as opposed to just jumping into it so blindly as he did, which he can't even really blame himself for because of his upbringing during such a troubling, like, tumultuous time in the world. So he doesn't reject it outright. He, like, acknowledges, oh yeah, well, we did what we could at that point. Like, those were barbaric, like, cruel techniques. And Sol's like, yeah, that was fighting. We gotta fight. He's like, okay, well, it's over. Or at least it would have been if I actually did that.
We love a recovered Catholic guild king. Literal king.
King.
Like the concept of, like, with the Venom Club, but, like, learning sin being necessary and, like, learning from it. Yeah, if anyone's gonna know that, it's Ky, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, also another huge thing with his character arc and themes in general being, like, him trying to distance himself from that past of being a living weapon and figuring out who he is beyond that and where his place in the world, like, stands. I feel like this is all shit that's definitely gonna be brought up in Xrd, because that's when they started tackling that the most. But you can see it, like, especially in older games. Ky's, like, he's a person, but he's not much of one. He's still clinging to all he does know, which is justice and hope and this drive to go forward. This drive is continuously being challenged. His only reason for being like a person and existing in his mind is continuously being brought up as wrong, and what does that mean for him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's someone who was locked in survival mode for so long, and like we had mentioned earlier, basically deprived of that important formative time in his adolescence where he got to carve out who he is as a person, that like pretty much everyone that he encounters is like, oh, you suck, oh, that's stupid, oh, you need to reevaluate how you think about the world. And it's so funny, I was like looking through the win quotes in X and Missing Link, and it's like, it really feels like Kai's are all respects for their fighting style and how earnestly they're living their lives, and then everyone else to Kai is like, "Oh, you're a naive kid. You don't know anything."
Well, and like, if you think of, oh, D, you want to go first?
No, you are all good to go. I am also fighting for my life in a match.
If you think about it, he grew up in the spotlight of the Crusades. Like, he went from being like a star pupil to the leader of it. So he but got raised as what you're doing is the right thing. You are doing the right thing. There is no other way. Keep doing what you're doing. Only to get out of the Crusades, and everyone's telling him that that thing is now wrong.
Yes. If I may add, what I was gonna say actually was also him leaving the Crusades. The only thing he really knew was public service, and that actually being the reason why he went to the IPF, it's because he wanted to continue doing public service and fighting for other people.
Yes, because like we were saying earlier too, the other defining trait of him of being so caring and then also having that compulsion to repay the people and the system that basically like gave him a raison d'etre. And I think, though, unless you guys had more to say about Missing Link and X, that does bring us nicely into the rehabilitative kind of effect that his relationship with Dizzy had on him.
I would always love to talk about his relationship with Dizzy, personally.
Talk about life!
Hell yeah!
I have nothing more to really share about Missing Link, just to follow up from what you were saying about him, like, feeling like he owes humanity like some act of public service. It's just another example of like the story and like some small details here and there working like almost against the idea of a cool Kai, because like once if people already at this point in the story aren't really convinced that Kai like is that guy, like a lot of people just hear, oh, he was a cop too, no way.
yeah.
Which,
another Ky Kiske.
Yeah, well, to be fair, well, not to be fair, but in his slight defense, he actually hated the system and genuinely for some reason thought he alone could change it, but alas.
He's doing that Suzaku thing.
Yeah.
For all my Code Geass.
I mean, even up to Xrd, like, whenever the system and its bureaucracy is, like, trying to stop him, he's like, I don't care, like, I'll just do my thing. Like, literally, Xrd opens, like, asking Leo, like, hey, can I do this thing? And Leo's like, no, and he's like, okay, bye, and does it anyways. So, like,
cool, already did it.
Like,
I'm doing it right now, actually.
Even in the CD jam, as an order to add on to that, back when he was in the IPF, he kind of never listened to those high ups. Like when doing that whole golden disc thing we jokingly mentioned, to actually pick it up, he was like not listening to his commanders in there, to the point where they tried to kill him. If you want to read the transcript of this, check out our wiki. Anyways, but yeah, like it is kind of funny that despite being a crusader for justice and coming off as a stickler for the rules, we see earlier on as in his IPF days and like Missing Link, X and XX, he isn't really one to follow a system he sees as unjust and will disobey orders if he does not see them as morally right or just.
Yeah, like there is absolutely a degree of scrutiny that he does practice even earlier on, like we were saying, where it's like, you know, he is still of the opinion earlier on that there is a clearly defined good and evil, but that isn't to say that he's approaching everything like, you know, without even a little bit of thought. Like there is still something going on there, because otherwise, where does that tension come from?
Yeah.
Real quick comment on a side thing about Kai's backstory not leading to people thinking he's cool. If you don't think a guy who joined the war at 10, attempted to join at 5, and then rose through the ranks because he wanted to save humanity is cool, there might be something wrong.
He's basically just like the Punisher if he was like an awesome Bishonen, if you think
Oh
about
my
it.
god.
I don't know much about the Punisher, but I'll take your word on it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think. Okay, I don't think Kai is as mentally unwell as Frank Castle. Personally.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
Mentally
I-
disturbed
but
image of a
yeah.
Kai player.
Oh wait, hold on. Insert the Squidward Kai player thing I sent earlier.
Kai would not have the fucking like blue striped Punisher like R decal.
No, I see. I don't think the
I
Punisher
don't think
would
the
have
Punisher
that
would
either.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I know-
the
I
Punisher
know
would
he
I?
The
I think that guy hates cops.
Talk to me about the
He does.
Punisher.
This is not a Punisher cast.
Yeah, if we want to bring it back to Kai, it would now be a decent time to start talking about his relationship to Dizzy and the impact that had on the both of them.
Of course.
So if you're cool with me just starting things off here, I think Dizzy is a really great iteration on what he went through seeing Sol leave the Holy Order, and sort of having that notion of like Gears bad, people good, rocked, because here before him is this really humanoid Gear who is suffering, who is being made the victim by the world, by something he himself would have practiced if, you know, he had found her in an earlier part of her life. But, you know, through this he gets an opportunity to realize like, oh my god, no, she's like a person, basically the same as I am. And I'm trying to think of the specific quote that I wanted to pull up here, but so much of what he's telling her, I think, is also him trying to say this to himself or an earlier version of himself, which is why I think that their relationship is so compelling. Oh, here's one. Yeah, even if it's a power we didn't want, we all have a responsibility to our powers. Instead of running, you must show the world what kind of person you are. That is what it means to live. Didn't you know? To live is to be a burden to others. See? There are good things to living as a person as well. To teach you to live as a person. That's why I came. So you could, I feel like, easily see from that quote, like that is as much him telling Dizzy that as it is him telling himself that. You know, it's exactly what we were talking about of him having to rationalize, like, oh, I'm not just this instrument of war. I'm a person too. And not only that, like, I'm not being ungrateful if I don't perpetuate this cycle of mindless violence. Like, it's a good thing to think and to be caring and to allow yourself to feel, but there also comes with that an obligation to put yourself forward, not as just a thing or a symbol, but as a person.
Yeah, definitely.
Not just
Raise your
somebody.
hand if you're emotional about Ky Kiske right now.
Raising hand.
I would-
Sorry, continue.
I've got both my hands up right now. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Whenever you're done, do I have permission to piggyback onto what you're saying?
Oh yeah, I'm totally done.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm being beat up in game. What I was saying is,
overhead.
when it comes to Kind Dizzy, like what you're saying, he, like that building block with him, like seeing Gears is a little less human. So it's like as seeing Gears as human. So I am being absolutely destroyed in game. I just got perfected. What are you saying about him? Like, he meets Dizzy, like the power and all that, but he does like the building block is kind of set with Sol in Missing Link, where he learns Sol is not human, and kind of like his world's being shaken between that and justice. And then he meets this humanoid Gear, as you said, and it's like, oh crap. And then, oh, she doesn't want to fight. She has power, and just her looks so human. And then he like talks to her, all that, blah blah blah. Whole conversation in Dizzy's arcade route in Xrd plus the X games, which is like the whole thing. I genuinely am trying to like just say they are very good for each other. They both have like this thing where they see themselves as like, or in some way aren't really like human or a weapon. Dizzy being quite literally a Gear, which were meant to be biological weapons, followed by Kai, who kind of was a weapon of war. But both of them kind of coming together, like finding an understanding with each other when they met, to the point where they're living together, fall in love. And I do believe that they literally quite bring out like the in quotations, human part of each other,
Yes.
where they both learn to live through each other. Because, and we see this also through the CD drama as well, we see what happens if Dizzy never met Ky. She takes Justice's place. So I do think genuinely in some way they are both so good for each other because they brought out like a kind of more human side in each other. Ky's whole worldview gets shaken up by he falls in love with Agir, the thing he always swore to destroy, but no matter like how much guilt he feels for that, he loves her and is devoted to her. And also he kind of relaxes after meeting her. Like if you see how he acts in older games compared to like post Overture games, he's a lot more relaxed, especially in scenes where he's around Dizzy. Like he genuinely just seems more relaxed and happy and like isn't as focused on like justice, everything. His like new justice is he wants justice for his family. He wants, after meeting Dizzy, having a kid with her, the best he can make for Dizzy and Sin. I'm like trying to figure out the best way to articulate this. I just think no matter what, like they changed each other's words in a very loving and kind way, brought out the good in one another, and they are just super sweet and I love them dearly. Sorry, that was not like articulated the best because I was
No, you're all
speeding
good.
up. I was like trying to focus on game as well.
To piggyback Dee's piggybacking, because Ky Kiske has entered the chat. Well, I also want to say, so knowing Sol and learning he's a gear was like definitely one like groundbreaking thing for Ky, but like he had the background, like he knew Sol all throughout the war. He saw that Sol was fighting for humanity that entire time, and like he knew what kind of person Sol was. Dizzy was an entirely different story. Like he found her through a bounty posting. Like he had to go outside of the law to meet her, and while she was the same as Sol, a gear, she's completely different from him. Sol is trying to like do whatever his backstory is going on. No idea there. But like, Dizzy so violently like almost doesn't want to be a gear. She's shameful of who she is, the same way Ky is probably shameful of the way he is with himself, which does go in with their relationship of they build each other up, they figure out how to be human through the other, and they improve each other. Like as Dee mentioned, we know what happens if either of them don't meet each other. It's not pretty.
Not great for the timeline.
It's not great for the timeline and anyone involved. Something that I always love, and I especially love seeing in like modern games now, is just how much they like respect each other, and you can tell how much appreciation they have, even like beyond like a romance level too, of just like, this person has done so much for me in my life, they've been there for me, they've helped me grow as a person and figure out who I am in a world that is cruel. And you can tell they, beyond like how much they love each other, they respect each other. They want the best for you. They want to go into the future together and make it the best for everyone else too. It's beautiful. They're beautiful. They're peak.
No,
They're
it's
also
really
just
good.
so in love.
It's so
true.
They're each other's schmoopies. But I'm glad that you mentioned that too, because once again he has a quote in XX that is like very pertinent to that exact idea. His win quote against RoboKai is, "It looks like your tactics are based on old data. Remember this: humans don't stop evolving." So literally, exactly to your point of like recognizing himself as a human with capacity to grow and change.
Ky recognizing himself as human as he becomes less my beloved.
Trying to think of anything else in XX. There are a few other quotes that I had, but we could always circle back to those
Jane
later
has
because
her crush on Ky, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, makes sense.
I mean,
All things that have
a
not
crush on
aged.
Yeah, didn't age the best. Ky is described as pretty by multiple characters. Give him
That is possible.
yeah.
Including
what was I
Daisuke.
gonna, oh my god. What was I gonna say? Oh, yes! X, the one where he meets Dizzy. As we've seen in, like, Xrd and stuff, they keep going back to Ky and Dizzy's meeting and reanimating it. Dual Rulers trailer. Can we talk about how they are reanimating that scene? You can see it. He has the short hair. Oh my!
I still got one more in me. It's Daisuke.
I guess commander of the Holy Order is marrying a gear, whatever the line was at the bottom.
I have it on my wall right here. The hero of the Crusades, Ky Kiske, marrying a gear.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, because it was such a pivotal moment, not just for Ky, but for Guilty Gear as a whole. You've got the elements of guilt, you've got the elements of gear, you've got the elements of humanity and love. It's everything.
The gear elements are
Holy
here.
shit.
But yeah, I guess one more XX bit, unless you guys had anything else that I wanted to say, was his quote against Sol and XX. I also think is really cool. I think this is actually from his arcader from the story, not a win quote, but it is still really good. And it's, "I too will do only what I can do. That to me is justice." So again, like his idea of justice evolving from striking down the whip to being a good person to the best of his ability.
Yeah, and if we're kind of like in the XXX purgatory, because let's be honest, those games kind of start to all like fade together story-wise.
Yeah, and XX doesn't have too much going on anyways.
Yeah, but like while we're in there, we even see in the accent clauses plus like story mode,
the wrong direction. No.
Yeah, again in like. I forget if it's in Sol or Ky's or both, but like that is when you also see Ky is not as like, I guess like he's not holding on to the I need to beat Sol, I'm mad at him as much. Like even though Plus R technically came out after Overture, we don't need to think about that much. It takes place beforehand. But we see in like the arcade routes in that game, like that they're kind of like letting go of the like, oh, we all mad at each other, blah 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 rivalry, you know, moving towards like a more friendly rivalry and like more towards the friend like state that they kind of are by. It's like also getting them an Overture, by especially by Xrd. By that point, they are much more of a friendly rivalry than anything.
The in-law state.
The natural progression.
Yeah, that's another thing that I really enjoy with that like game is we see. Oh, like a arcade mode with Ky and Sol, it's like, oh, I'm so angry at you, I'm so angry at you, and like by the end of the XX like plus R, it's like I'm letting this go. Like, yeah, I'm still competitive towards you, but I don't feel this anger held at you, which I feel like could also, if we like put some red string up on a board, we could probably tie that to Dizzy somehow.
Letting himself like happen. Yeah, it's at a point like by the time like Xrd happens where like Sol has just been kind of like treating others around him the same way that like now the people who have become the closest to him at that point are like, dude, come on, like enough with this. We know what you're really thinking. Even Sin is able to like completely dissect him when he sees how he feels about Finn talking with Ramlethal. And a lot of that has to do with Ky like starting to kind of crack away at those walls and allowing him to like putting him in a situation where he can't really deny himself anymore. Like, we know who you are. Like, there's no point in trying to like project any of these latent insecurities that you have anymore because of your faults. Like, we know more of who you are now, and we know, like, I can't remember exactly when it was. I want to say it was during. That was a nice grab. I want to say it was during Revelator. Before I'd have to like touch back up on it, but it was a specific quote where Sol's doing his typical thing where he's like, "Oh well, I don't really want to talk about it. We just need to get the job done or whatever." And Ky just says, I know how you feel about this, and I know what you're going to want to do about this once we're done with it. But I just want you to know that no matter what you feel you're giving up, you're always going to have a family with us." And that's fucking
I love
crazy.
that line.
Oh, well, that's like, come home, Sol.
Yeah, like after this is all over, come home. Like, so I love them going from like, oh, we hate each other to being like actual family. Like in Strive, Sol straight up says he has royalty in the family. Take that as you will.
It's him being cheeky.
Yeah.
Literally the game progression of can't stand this bitch, me and the bestie.
Dad
The bestie.
Dad and
Me
the
and the-
guy he didn't want.
Me and the best are punching
He's
the Pope
like
together
wearing
with our
down
powers
Sol's
combined.
The Keys wearing down Sol's fucking rough exteriors. Oh, glorious.
It is really good. I guess just one more thing on XX before we move on to Overture. That I
No
had,
way.
unless
Oh.
more people had XX
No way.
thoughts. And I think it really wraps the things that we were saying up in a
Yeah.
nice little bow, where XX is like the real shaking state, where he's like, why must I make friends with the hated and make enemies of the respected? It's times
Yeah.
like these when I miss the days of the war, the days before I discovered the little space between good and
Yeah.
evil.
That's the
So-
cuntiest Kai line by far.
Yeah. Blowing up my board about Johnny and Kai's friendship that they love to ignore nowadays. They
It's
are
true.
considered friends canonically, and I think that's
Yeah.
very funny.
Yeah.
That part of the reason the jellyfish pirates get away with so much is because Captain turned king, Captain of the IPF turned king just ignores half the stuff they do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think Johnny deserves the in-law status just as much as Soul
Yeah.
does for all
Oh,
the
yeah.
Johnny's
interactions
at the
they have
wedding,
together.
so-
Friends.
Mhm.
Yeah, Johnny is at the wedding. We do know
Mhm.
this.
Mhm. And
I think it's between two of the supplemental material collections where like they had. I think it was because of the interactions with the discs, where like afterwards Kai's like, "Oh yeah, I remember you. You were a pretty big help during that one time. So like I'll take it easy on you. Considering you're a criminal, but like we still have a job to do here."
yeah, already bucking against the system if it means like, oh wait, like goodness isn't exclusively defined by if you're a criminal or not or a gear or not.
Yeah, it even took Leo a while to ease up to Johnny after a while.
Yeah, I do think it is funny. I think it is in Reload, Johnny's PWAP file, specifically says he's like dangerous because he has a connection to, I think it is specifically Gabriel and Kai.
Huh.
No, shout out to Reload. I have a screenshot of it somewhere. I can source this. I have a lot of Reload screenshots for some reason.
Johnny just knows a lot of people.
Johnny just knows everyone, yeah.
You kind of have to with a job like
Yeah.
that.
So I think
All about
it's
the
funny
connections.
that like Kai and Johnny are canonically friends. It just doesn't get brought up as often anymore.
Mm.
I mean, it's like kind of brought up that fact that I guess slightly unsaid in Xrd that Johnny is the ride.
Yeah, Johnny is the ride that like a lot of people are reluctant to count on, including the president. Like,
Yeah.
Wait, before we get into another match, do we want to start moving into Overture, or?
Sure.
oh yeah.
Because I know you guys, for everyone watching
Yeah,
the podcast, there's a very special surprise in store for the Overture stuff.
While you guys get that set up, I will be back in 1 second. I'm gonna go refill my water.
You know nothing about Overture. What's that game?
I've never heard of that one.
I bet that game
yeah.
doesn't even have Kai in it.
Welcome,
Yes,
everyone,
Overture.
to Overture.
For
It's
those
like-
in the audience that do not know about Overture, this is a game that exists. We
So the image.
started making
Indeed. To the chagrin of many fighting game fans back in the late aughts.
Yeah, a lot of people just ignore the existence of Overture because it's not a quote-unquote a fighting game, but it's literally so important for the lore that it's kind of funny. Like, if you start watching Xrd, like, you see Dr. Caroline, you see dimensions of so many characters you haven't seen before. They just start talking about a Valentine, and you're like, who's a Valentine? What are we? Why is the world exploding? And everything is explained in Overture. Like, it's the first appearance of Sin and so many other characters that people love. Like Raven's first appearance in game. Like, they're like, actually, he appeared first on Xrd. No, you're wrong. First on Overture. And we haven't got the pleasure to finish the whole PowerPoint, but we do have the gameplay version of it. The gameplay half of it, because I actually do run a lot of local and online Overture tournaments, and I need this on hand when people come to me, because this game is such a mess that people have a little bit of a hard time understanding the basics of it. So I'm just gonna educate very quickly on everyone on what this game is. And it's a MOBA RTS action fighting game with with Sonic-like movement, and you've got items and everything's going on, and it's great. It's wonderful. If you ever seen Jacko doing like the organ on their Xrd moveset, that's an Overture reference. Everything's an Overture reference. Don't worry about the Toho. That's
I
very
can't
fun.
believe
make
he
one
thought of
point?
this before League came out. Like, that's what I always get about Daisuke. Like, he
Wait,
was
what?
also... Yes, this came out before League of Legends, and there's a whole bunch of interviews with Daisuke
I
where
didn't
he's
know
like...
that.
League of Legends, inspired by Overture
Okay.
confirmed.
Okay.
Where he was also like...
Warcraft did exist. MOBAs did exist.
Yes,
True,
no,
true.
no, but Daisuke was like, he was a Warcraft 3 person. That means he was in those... He was playing Defense of the Ancients when it was a mod. He was on the nose with some of these, like, genres. Unfortunately, he also just tied it to a fighting game and also made it the most niche game to ever exist on the Xbox 360, so... But he wasn't
Yeah,
far off.
Yeah, which is funny because like the Xbox 360 was not a popular console in Japan.
No, I love
He made it
Daisuke's
for us.
Westabu ass.
He made it for us.
Did
Can I point
so
out one thing really
badly,
quick?
but they did them for us.
Yeah,
A
what's
lot of
up,
people
what's
are like, you gotta play Overture for the lore, and like, yes, they're right, but also, it's very fun to play. People are just very confused about it. Because if you put it down to very simple terms, and actually, can someone explain Overture for me for a second? My door
You want
is
me to
knocking
do it?
right now.
You want me to do it?
I'll do it badly. I'll go do it good.
Okay. So, to explain Overture in the most simplistic terms, your goal in a match is not to actually kill your opponent, but to kill the giant glowing thing you see in the back of the screenshot there, called their Master Ghost. It, in lore terms, is like the embodiment of their soul made manifest. Yes, wonderful for the brainworms, I know.
Undertale.
And you do, like, it has the major health bar. The big two ones you see at the top is actually the Master Ghost health bar, not your characters. Your characters sit at the bottom middle, along with their tension and everything else. So your goal is to try to control as much of the map as possible, as there's these minor miniature ghosts that are other, like, beacons, and as you collect those, you can get more mana you can use to summon other units with, so you can build your army even bigger or unlock better units, or even get your own skills. A lot of the special moves in this game are actually bound to buying in the organ and not innately within your character's moveset. And you want to get a combination of those so you can eventually get to the Master Ghosts and kill them. Oh, the slide got moved. I can keep going. Yeah, so fun thing about units is they actually work off the Fire Emblem weapon triangle. As you can see here, it's a bit more of a square with Overture because they have ranged and magic units which interact with other ones separately. But you've got the basic, you got melee units, they kill the fast mobile units, which kill the armored units, which kill the melee units. And then from there, everyone basically has the set of the triangle, including a magic and range unit, which fit in uniquely. And then they also have a super version of some of these units known as, like, I'm forgetting the term, oh my god, my knowledge is slipping, who am I?
Elite units.
Elite units! You get the elite units!
It's okay. So
Who am I?
basically,
My hours!
no, it's okay. You're ours. So basically,
Can I point one thing out really quick, just for like,
yes,
just for the sake of like, what is this game?
Yes.
What Rock brought up the gigantic like magic document that I wrote, just explaining like almost everything that has to do with just how magic as a concept works in this entire universe, like spells and everything. That all starts with this game. Like the terminology that they use to describe how they cast their spells, how like they become attuned to certain types of enchantments, or how they have like frequencies that they need to tune themselves to like if it not only does it all start in this game, so they start talking about this stuff nonchalantly from the very beginning, but they also add on everything to do with the backyard in the middle of it, so you are introduced to this insane concept involving the 12 steps of like magical science theory and like how we become attuned to different like elements of the game. But then they also throw backyard magic on top of that and start saying, wait a minute, that's not what we know about. Oh yeah, right, the backyard thing. Let me tell you about that. And it goes over everybody. If you don't know about it prior to that, this is when like Guilty Gear
you're
like,
so lost.
lore
Like I can
starts
imagine
to, like,
people
go back
playing
to-
this on 2007 and being like, "What the hell is going on?"
And
Yeah.
if anyone listening
Absolutely.
would
Yes,
like to
and
learn more,
especially-
I hear there's a video online of all the cutscenes. Followed by
Oh,
some.
True,
Yeah,
yeah.
like
Who uploaded that one?
an hour, right?
if you
Actually,
go
only
and
an
look at
hour.
the if you go and look at all of the cutscenes, you're gonna meet Sol Lower Dome guy on nerd mode and info dumping going on, and I adore him. And basically, the explanation for the Master Ghost in here is going back to what Wiz was saying about the whole steps and stuff. They start explaining it with the fact that you happen to be able to attune to a specific way of magic that allows you for your soul to take form and shape and be there in the battlefield. It's such a roundabout way to just justify your being able to just kick your
They kind of
opponent's
just
soul in
say
the
like
face.
they introduce you how to like fight and do normal combat, like in the beginning of the game, like how to just be a normal character on the field or whatever. And then maybe half an hour later, they just say, "Oh shit, this is backyard magic that we're dealing with now, and all of these units that are spawning out of me, like these are all fragments of the backyard magic that I'm now attuned to all of a sudden."
It's the set dressing for gameplay mechanics, but it also
That's-
just helps add to the fact that this is niche on niche on niche.
It is
But-
so
but at
much
the
of
same time,
addressing just to
it's
fit this new
so-
genre, but then they stick with that for the rest of the series forever.
It's so
Yeah,
cool.
they're like, here's a
It's
bunch
so
of new stuff.
interesting.
Never look in the background of any scene because you will see one of these unit
Yeah.
guys just hanging out.
So
Yeah.
basically, to me, it's just extremely important. And I think that one of the reasons why I love this game the most is that even down to the units, everything is so lore dependent in a way. Like we were talking a little bit about Kai's Master Ghost as well, and the fact that that he shares the Master Ghost with Sin goes also like deep lore way too, and I just adore it. I adore it. And going back into a little bit of the gameplay, I love that they start explaining that basically you can't just hit your enemy's Master Ghost yourself because it has a shield, and you cannot bring down that shield. So you have little guys, and the little guys you have to summon them with mana, and the way to earn mana is to grab these little turrets, these little ghosts. So by getting ghosts, you get mana, and by getting that, then you start summoning minions, and you've got towers all over the map. And there's basically a lot of little paths that you can take. There's a lot of strategy to it, and as you can see on the mini map, you can see who has most ghosts taking up at any point in time. At the end of the round, like you get like taxes if you got a lot of like your units out on the map because they start using like a lot of resources, and then you get calculated depending on how many ghosts you have, how much mana you start with the next round, because this game is on at most 5 rounds for 5 minutes each if you haven't like defeated the other person by then. And everyone has their full moveset, like with specials and normals, and also you've got skills that you're gonna buy on the store. So you've got your Dragon installs, you've got all of your Volcanic Vipers and your Gun Flames, and there's so many cool playable characters.
Yeah. So, as our current slide is showing, there are multiple characters in Overture. This was the awkward period of time, like rights-wise, with Xrd and Guilty Gear. So that's why we only see like really Ky and Sol as the remaining characters from the original cast, which does kind of suck, but it did open the door for a bunch of new lore and a bunch of new characters to come in. And I might be a bit biased, but I think Overture did a good job in giving us a well-rounded cast to go with.
Yeah,
For this,
they
like
did the most with what they could, especially with the characters that they really wanted to include in there, whether they were original or not. Like especially Dizzy, only really being able to be referred to as the Maiden of the Grove, and not Dizzy herself, and not really having any lines.
Yeah.
But
And
love you,
sorry,
Sega Sammy Corp. But
yeah, I was about to say,
this
for
was-
those who don't know, there was some legal issues around this time. They only really had access to a few characters, and that's why Dizzy couldn't be named.
Yeah. But like going on of characters that were added into the game, we get characters like Paradigm and Loki Izuna, where it dives more into the gear part of Guilty Gear. You know, like where are gear rights at this point? We learned through Paradigm that there were gears that managed to, I don't think escape's the right word, but resist the slumber that happened with Justice killing.
They were
And
able
now-
to exist and
Yeah.
think and live.
Yeah, and now had to like find their own places in this world, a world that hated them and wanted them all dead. And they formed their own community away from that, attempting to, you know, continue on living in their own way. We get We get Izuna, which I will admit, I don't know the most about Izuna.
He's a
I
yokai.
keep meaning to read
That's
his
about
story.
it.
He's a yokai.
I am
That's
not
cool.
So
I'm
T-
not the biggest
so the
Izuna fan. You cannot
TLDR
trust me with him.
Yeah, the TLDR of Izuna is that he's basically like a hairpin that became imbued with a lot of like backdoor magic, and now he's just there, and he's a grandpa that adopted a lot of daughters. That's the TLDR.
The most interesting thing I think I can say in regards to Izuna is somewhere, I forgot exactly where it was, I've looked at too many files, but one of Underworld Hill's fun facts, I think it's GG World actually, they mentioned that the place that they live, Underworld Hill, was created before Izuna inhabited it, if I remember correctly, which implies that this place was made before them, which is like, okay, Arxis, what do you mean by this?
It's a weird space of the backyard that existed
Why was this created?
before.
Who made this? What purpose?
Yeah.
We don't know. Yeah, this game also does give us the introductions to. Sorry.
I was gonna say there's another very important character for Kyle. That was
Kyle.
introduced. Good old.
Don't
He's
worry
in the
about
corner
it.
because
He's
you
not
have
playable.
to finish the story, and then he becomes playable. So we always
Oh,
give him on the corner of the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I was making a joke that on like when we were on the topic of introducing characters, this is the game that introduced Kai's lovely son.
I'm getting to him. I was saving him for
Yeah.
last. He needs the
Oh
prep.
my bad. Continue on, soldier.
Yeah. What? Who'd you say?
Shoto to
Whoa,
self-help
Valentine.
paradise.
You were talking about Valentine. That's what you said, D.
Yeah,
I was talking
Uh,
about Raven.
You were talking about Raven. Who's that, anyways?
Some
yeah.
weirdo that Segi Sama, whatever. Cut that out, please. Sega, some weirdo that Sega Sammy Corp just forgot existed deep within the lore, and they were like, oh shit, they let it. We can use this guy in the lore, and some people might recognize him.
Looking at like, okay, who do we have left? We got Sol, awesome. We got Kai, awesome. We have like half of Dizzy, cool. Raven, we got Raven. He's here. He's doing stuff. He's mentioning a guy.
There's no sprites of him, so that works.
Don't worry,
Oh,
he's all ours.
And that man.
And that
Take
man.
But
Who could
that
that
man's not playable, so.
You may not be able to have Slayer or Eno, but you can get the main villain that's been hinted at throughout the entire series. So I think that's a really good compromise.
Yeah.
I super agree. If they were not allowed to allude to his presence in the middle of all this, especially when they are talking about, especially when they're fleshing out magic to this extent, like I feel like it would suffer a pretty heavy blow,
Yeah.
lore-wise.
The smallest picture of Convict Hammer.
Yeah.
Going back, the other character that we haven't mentioned is Valentine, as we'll find with Xrd very soon. This game introduced the Valentines, as someone mentioned, with the Valentine here and her whole gear. We get a little bit of the universal, I think the tiniest bit. She's just mother in this game, but
Yeah.
like, we kind of get her.
I must fetch the key for my mother.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who's that? You'll find out later. Don't worry
You'll find out
about it.
in a game or two.
In a game or two. Okay. Poor segue, because I can't do a segue anymore. Perhaps,
It's okay.
in my unbiased opinion, the most important character we got out of Overture is Ky and Dizzy's son, Sid. Like, this game is all about him, like, low-key, maybe high-key. His relationship
High-key.
with Ky. High-key. His relationship with Ky, you know, and, like, we actually see a great thing about Overture. They're doing the whole, like, father-son, you know, like, expectations and miscommunication thing that you see in a lot of games. Overture gets through that arc, like, for, like, the majority of it for us. We see it in the fucking level Light on a Peaceful Night. This whole game is about their miscommunication and, like, learning that Wilston has the whole thing about, you know, believing that Kai's, like, a shit parent and a shit king due to his upbringing and all. I think I'm gonna let, like, D or someone talk about this more, because I'm too frazzle-brained. But, like, we see learning about getting over that and figuring out, like, the setup for the beautiful moment that is in Xrd.
No, you go first because I will start ranting, rambling.
Oh, no. Before you start ranting, it's just like one detail. I like how this is still in like the middle of a very shaky relationship that exists between Sol and Ky, especially considering this is when Ky has been given like a platform that he did not ask for in politics because of his relationship with Dizzy. So like anything that he needs to like trust Sol with has to be like super under wraps, because his whole identity in the world is like it's shaky at most. So like the only way that he could think of to like summon him to like ask for help is, okay, put out a bounty on that guy's head for like $500 million. He'll know what it means.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Oh yes, that is how the beginning of the game, Ky tells the soldier, he's like, I need Sol to get here. Go put a wanted poster of him outside, basically.
Yeah.
But if I may go off on, I love Overture. It is, if you've ever seen any of my tweets, one of my favorite games in the series. But basically, yeah, as mentioned by Wiz, something not actually in game, but in the art book has short stories, is mentioned Ky never wanted to be king, really. His only, like, pro he saw, and he's like, oh, maybe I half considered it because I wanted to, you know, make the world a better place for my wife and kid, who was unborn kid at this point, egg kid, but also canonically egg kid. But basically, he was thrown into...
It was 6 months at that point, I'm pretty sure.
Story, like the one with Sol, or the
Wait,
one Ky specifically?
How long is a normal pregnancy? Oh, this is a stupid thing to ask.
9.
Oh, well,
Okay, guys, I'm
Hey.
smart. I promise. I graduated in college. It was okay. So, a year pregnancy
really
is
fast.
about
It was
at the
just
time of the
when-
story, it was 6 weeks. But
Okay.
yes. What was I saying? I had to stand up for this. So basically, in Overture, we learn Ky didn't really want to be king. We see he's thrown in this position, and basically, it's just revealed at the beginning of Overture. Hey, this character's king now. And then he's like, oh, things are going bad. We have to call Sol, and what we know is just this dude following him show up, and then this dude's yelling at Ky. That's kind of weird. Why does he like seem like he knows him? And we learn, oh, Ky's like, yeah, by the way, this is my son. I had to literally give him up and give him to Sol, or he could have been killed. But Sin doesn't know this, so we have this whole arc of Sin hates Ky, and for his reason is he just thought Ky was like ignoring him and his mom, Baba doesn't love him. And we found out, no, Ky loves him and Dizzy more than anything in this world. He felt guilt because he was still going through all these changes on his own worldview. He's like, oh crap, I married a gear. I love her more than anything. I want the world to be better for her, for my son, but I am still trying to shake this guilt. And because of that, he wasn't the best. Like, he was a bit distant at the time and kind of threw himself into his work. And by the time he was king, he was like, I literally cannot have them around me or they could die. And during all this, Sin is like yelling his feelings at Ky. Ky never argues back, never raises. He takes all of that. And I think that is so impressive that he cares about Sin so much. He feels no need to argue. He's like, tell me all of your emotions, I'll accept them, basically. He literally does not say, like, argue with Sin. He just accepts everything Sin says till he runs away and just like, sorry you guys had to see that, I guess. And we see throughout the game, like, even Sol tries to explain to Sin, like, hey, your dad really cares about you, and it's not until A Light in a Peaceful Night where they get to talk that out. Well, Ky's like, hey, I know I wasn't a good dad. I want to do better. I really care about you. Yes, there we see them, like, start to talk to each other about everything. Like, Sin's like, hey, I misunderstood some things going in the past. Like, we're not there yet, but I'm willing to start, like, listening to you, putting in the effort for a relationship. And Ky's like, yeah, I know I wasn't a good dad either. I wasn't, sorry, I got distracted by something. I wasn't a good dad either. I want to do better. Like, and they're both like, let's put in the effort for this to just be better family to each other. And they do, like, even to the point where Sin makes an offhand comment about, like, hey, you don't have to be so serious, and Ky tries to joke with him in the end credits. It's just nice that, like, throughout the story we see, like, Sin being frustrated with Ky kind of just accepting all that frustration, them talking it out, and to the point where it leads into Xrd, where they finally start to, like, the relationship starts to heal to the point where Sin feels comfortable calling him dad instead of Ky, because in all of Overture and the beginning of Sign, he just calls Ky by his name. I really love the introduction of Sin and how, like, the whole family, the dynamic, and how it grows and evolves and changes. That's all. That's my piece.
Heartily agree. I think that you're really on the money with that, and I also think part of the reason why in those scenes we don't see Ky rebuffing what Sin is saying to him isn't only because he's trying to be an understanding father. I think it's also because Sin is kind of giving voice to how Ky is feeling about himself in that moment, where he's frustrated with himself that he was, I guess, I don't know if weak or ashamed is the right word, where he couldn't feel secure enough in his new family and the love that he has for Dizzy and Sin to just, walk out into Illyria with them and say, you're my people, you should accept this, the Gears are no different from anyone else, and to make that statement that now they're finally doing in Strive and Dual Rulers all those years ago. So I think it's, that Sin is kind of speaking to the shame that Ky is feeling about himself right now.
Heck yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I do also want to add on both. I think this is in addition to both. When I look at Kai's whole deal of Sin in Overture, what to me it speaks to is I think Ky himself doesn't feel like he deserves a second chance with Sin. We don't see him argue back with Sin and everything, and I think it's because he thinks he messed up. He doesn't get this. If Sin's gonna be mad at him, then he deserves to be. So be it. And it is that Sin taking that step forward on Light of a Peaceful Night that makes that moment all the more beautiful, because we hear Sin be a little bit rude in that he's like, you're not my dad, I only have one dad, and yet he's still like, but if you want to be a dad, here's what you can do. And I think that signals to Ky hey, don't give up, yeah, you messed up, I'm mad at you, but you can still change, you can still do things, you can still fix things, you don't have to be saddled down this one locked path, because a big part of Ky in Overture is that he's stuck in this position he didn't want to be in, he was forced into, he's stuck away from his family, all this stuff, but Sin's almost reminding him no, you're not, you're still you, you're still human, you can still do things.
Oh, I wouldn't though, because I realized I forgot to explain it. Yeah, for those who are listening and may not know, the way Ky became king, like I said, he didn't really want to. He half considered it because he wanted to build a better wood for his family, but he wasn't actually going to. He kind of got blackmailed into it because the Conclave, everyone's favorite little gang of people, threatened Dizzy.
It is
Perfect
true.
king.
The second most annoying Illuminati force in the world of Guilty Gear.
It's so funny that there is a number
The
of
second most.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm glad that you touch on that too, because we also get a lot of great moments throughout Overture of Ky defending Dizzy when Paradigm is describing her as a weapon, and he's like, she's not a weapon, I really love that moment.
Okay, much so,
Yeah,
yes.
especially as we talked about earlier, the whole Ky and Dizzy helping each other become not weapons and become people.
Yes.
And then Paradigm's yeah, you see her as a weapon. He's like,
Nerd emoji.
I'm sorry. Now I just have the image in my head of U.S. government is a puppet, and the puppet master of that is the Assassin's Guild, which is being puppeted by the Conclave, which is being puppeted by the Sanctus Populi, which is being puppeted by the Universal Will.
Yeah.
Happy Chaos is up there.
Yeah.
It's Naruto all over again.
And then above that's you with the controller at your logo.
It was the moon the whole time.
Yeah, thank you.
Guys, maybe we're the Guilty Gears.
Let's do it, Guilty in Gear. But yeah, I also, while we're still on Overture, wanted to talk about another quote, if I could. I really like the ones that Ky has both to and about Sin, where he has the one where he was like, if I lived 6 lives, I don't know whether or not I can make it up to you, but rather than giving in to regret, I decided to struggle and take back the light. For that reason alone, I cannot lose this battle. To protect the people's light and to prove to them that I've chosen the right path, it's my responsibility to be here. Very fucking sick. Love. It's awesome. And then also just kind of touching on what we've been saying throughout the podcast so far, the brief bit of narration that exists. I forget what the title of the scene is, where it's just talking about, once again, Ky's crisis of faith with his family now, where he lived his whole life having faith in his beliefs and his justice. However, how could he say that he made the right decisions? If it was the old him, he would have said yes, but he learned the truth. No, he might have noticed it a while ago. He didn't want to admit it. He didn't want to admit that his conduct caused considerable pain and suffering to some people, but before he realized the truth, Sin was already long gone.
Yeah,
So
I do
again-
love the little loading screen text so much.
Yeah, no, it's really awesome. But yeah, just the continued recognition of the fact that like Ky kind of is fully aware of what Sin is saying to him already, and he's like, "Oh man, I'm definitely not the old Ky that I used to be. I'm learning a lot. Maybe I should have been a little bit prouder of my family and a little bit kinder. I needed to have the bravery to go out and do that and just proudly be myself as a person. But I guess it's harder for him to do without Dizzy."
I think it's also like Ky needing to recognize that he's not alone in this.
Yes.
Because a big
Yeah.
part of Ky is
Mhm.
being on this path, these holy orders, if you will, of like solving the world and like finding his justice alone. Like it's always
Mhm.
been him. He was the one who's gonna stop the Crusades. He was the one who's gonna fix the IDF. He's gonna be the one to rule Illyria. But no, he has people around him, and he needs to recognize that. And when he is at his weakest and like can't see the way forward, those people will be there for him and will like help shoulder these burdens he carries to create that future.
God, that was just bars. That was really good, and I it makes me really happy too because there's another quote that he has with Potemkin. Low-key, I don't know
I'm
if
a writer
anybody.
sometimes.
You are. I don't know if anybody noticed this, but low-key, Ky has a lot of really great quotes with Potemkin. For some reason, they really respect the fuck out of each other.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
Yeah,
as-
they share
It's
Xrd arcade
It's
rooms.
good.
Yes,
Oh,
I guess
yeah.
as the like heroic soldiers made into living weapons for their countries that are trying to regain their humanity and show the world that there is merit to being human, they have that through line. But to your point, Elky has a line with Potemkin where he literally does say, I feel exactly the same way. Like you, I feel weak and powerless. Alone, I'm unable to solve even the simplest of problems, which is precisely why I come to you for help. The reason I asked you to come here isn't just for you to help me in this investigation. What the world needs right now is hope. We're making a stand against an unknown force. What we must do is first remove the people's fear of it, and that will not be easy. Our nations have been at odds for so long, which is why us joining forces has such significance. Surely we will be able to imbue that sense of hope within our people. So literally just exactly like Ky learning the lesson of you
Yeah,
need to come together with other people. Not everything is on you, and that in being a family and allowing yourself to love and be loved, there's a more incredible power than anything else. It sounds so hacky, but
And
it's
that
true.
one is a Xrd quote, right? That is from the
Yes.
arcade mode. Which
Yes, that
you
is
see
from
like
Xrd
Sin
arcade.
showing him that he's not alone in Overture,
Yes.
and he takes that to heart in the game
Mhm.
after.
He's a caring, loving dad. It's awesome.
The dad.
And there's also that moment where that Ky and Potemkin share in Revelator after the cradle shows itself and like establishes itself as such a threat in the middle of Illyria with like nearly resurrecting justice, where they meet on their own separate accords, investigating the conclave, and they like butt heads on like because they are both on their own missions to prove themselves that they could be as if they need to prove to themselves and to their people that they can be walls more or less to like shield the people that they care about without but they don't realize yet that they since they are so similar that like you were talking about, it's better for them to be able to conjoin their forces and share their information and their resources to find like common ground and settle these things for a common good for everybody.
To that end, do we all want to move on to Xrd now, or did we have more to say about Overture?
I am perfectly fine to move on to Xrd.
I have one thing more to say about Overture, and it's more of like a question for everybody. Liam O'Brien.
Okay.
If I'm honest,
You
I
shared
don't
his
feel
voice Ky.
I don't really feel connected to any Ky voice actor. Like none of them do it for me, like the same way the Japanese one does. I feel like we haven't found the perfect Ky voice yet.
Yeah, I'm kind of.
Kusal, my beloved.
Considering Takeshi Kusao has voiced Ky like during his entire existence in Japanese, it's really hard to like really settle with a voice for Ky, considering he's had 3 of them, if I remember: Liam O'Brien, Sam Riegel, and Sean Chiplock. And as much as I would normally say like, oh, recency bias, Sean Chiplock, I really think that I can like physically say that I'm a fan of something that Sean Chiplock has done.
Evil man.
I was. Do you want to go first, T?
I was just gonna say, I think, like obviously his Japanese voice actor is the most fitting to me. I feel like all of his voice actors fit that game's version of Ky,
Yeah.
but wouldn't fit
Yeah,
another.
yeah.
But if you would have like put like Liam O'Brien in Xrd, I feel like then it wouldn't feel as fitting. Like I feel like they fit how
Yeah.
Ky acts in that game, and just you can't really remove them from that game specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was gonna say. Like each
Yeah.
English Ky voices that era like perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably just so used to it at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can change
Although-
a couple more times. It's fun.
Although whenever Yuri Lowenthal uses that voice, I can't help it. That's Yosuke.
Yeah, it's so true. Like it's so
true.
funny.
You're-
I'm sure.
It's either
trying to-
Yosuke,
you're trying
it's
to
either
put-
Sasuke, or it's Sin to you. Like,
or that guy from Ergo Proxy.
yeah, I never finished
I don't know
Ergo
what that
Proxy. I
is.
won't lie, it was kind of boring.
What?
I wish I liked it, but like,
In
I-
Rock's defense, we both tried to watch it together when we were very tired and we fell asleep.
So
I-
fair.
I thoroughly implore the both of you to at least give it another
we
shot.
got to the part where they're about to get off of the floating island thing that they're on into the desert, and then I just fell asleep. I was like,
It was like the third
early.
episode.
That's so early.
Third episode.
I like
And
her
it's-
makeup though.
The audio was just really quiet and it was really
You
late.
stopped watching Avatar: The Last Airbender before they found the abandoned air temple.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Damn. We are definitely gonna go back.
Anyway,
a bit on topic before we move on to Xrd. Do we talk about the gear thing now, or do we save it?
the eye thing.
The eye thing's a
thing-
part of it, but just
yeah.
in general, the gear thing. Because like,
This isn't.
depending on what you believe, Ky displaying gear things either starts with Overture or Xrd. We're in the middle of that right now.
Disclaimer! Most of these are
Disclaimer.
theories!
Disclaimer. There is no
Disclaimer, they
canon
haven't
reason
given us-
yet for
They
Ky
haven't
having
given us
gear
any
cells.
solid answers on any of this shit. But
Dual
like,
rulers, please.
all we can really do is speculate. But there are a lot of details that really point towards one thing or another. But they always say, like,
Yeah.
we don't really know what this
No.
could be,
I
but-
think the
or what he
truth
means
is
by
that from Overture, it was always intended that that Ky would have Sin's eye, and because Sin is a gear or a quarter gear, now Ky is a gear too. But he
It's just like
after
they
Overture,
backpedaled.
when he was doing Xrd, I think he and into Strive, he was like, "Oh, isn't it kind of fucked up to take a newborn baby's eye and
Yeah.
give
We're
the
getting there.
eye to a new, give your eye to a
Yeah.
baby? And how would that work?" So I think Daisuke may have gotten a bit squicked out and then changed it to, it's because of his connection with Dizzy. That's what it is. Yeah, Dizzy.
Yeah,
And then-
I personally have very mixed opinions on this whole thing, depending on who, like, what kind of version of I'm hearing it from. So I have nothing to really add to this conversation other than Kaiser Gear, and that's cool.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like
that's cool.
Go ahead, Jay.
I like that it went from Naruto Kekkei Genkai transplant to you are what you eat.
all that I really like firmly believe in all of it is just what we see with their eyes, which eyes they are that we see change color or like see power emanating from, the what we hear Asuka refer to these things as, the timeline of it. We can only really draw so many solid conclusions of it, just outside of just believing it in our hearts without making any like real overall claims. All I really know is anytime someone says gear cell STDs, I want to.
Oh,
No,
no.
that's
So
my
we're all in
standard.
agreement that joke sucks? We're all in
Yeah.
agreement
It's
that
awful.
joke sucks. Okay, thank
It was
God.
awful.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Anytime that is brought up into the conversation, like, and they mean it, I just want to stop talking to them.
Yeah.
Like,
oh god.
Yeah, same.
Okay. If no one else has anything to say, I think I have one of the people with the most opinions on this topic
I'm saying,
as we're going
go
into.
on.
speak
Okay.
the truth.
So, eye swap, as it's known, is right now one of the stronger theories for what's going on with Kai's gear cells, because what other valid reasons do we have other for like Ky having these,
Mhm.
Sense of
Uh,
Daisuke saying,
so-
Dizzy's involved.
Yeah.
This is
So-
all he decided to say. Anyways, continue to speak
Yeah.
your truth.
So the way I decided that ISWAP works, for my understanding, and I clarifying because this is theory talk. This is not like confirmed stuff.
No, yeah.
I know like a few of us are like on the wiki and do lore stuff and blah blah blah. So I feel like it needs to be said. This is a theory. I believe personally that ISWAP like
Game
works.
theory, I'm so sorry,
game.
continue.
Now we said
Okay. Legally required anyway. I
Mhm.
believe ISWAP like works, and it's actually,
Yeah.
if anything, a testament to how much Kai loves his family. To me, because yes, one of the major issues is, hey, Kai swapping eyes with a newborn is kind of fucked up. The way I ended up explaining it for myself is, I think if I remember right, there is some shit about Sin having trouble controlling that gear side of him as a
Yeah.
newborn, especially
Yeah.
with him being a quarter gear and growing so rapidly. It is difficult to say the least. So to me, ISWAP was done, and as we've seen both with some of Sin's animations and Kai's animations, the cells are kind of congregating or centered around their eyes. Kai swapped eyes with Sun to help stabilize him, to make him
Yeah.
a bit more human so he could control his powers. Even if that meant Kai then would start suffering from the same decline Sin was. Like, he was willing to forsake his very humanity so that his son would have a better chance to live and grow and live a normal life. Because a big fear of Kai's was, oh, he had to hide his son from the people, but his son couldn't even control his own powers. How is he supposed to, does he force Sin to be sheltered his entire life because of these concerns about, oh, what if people find out he's a gear? Or does he make this sacrifice with Sin so that Sin could go out there and experience the world and, like, be at least somewhat more quote-unquote normal? And that's, like, how ISWAP is to me. It is a
Yeah.
statement of how far Kai was willing to go
Sense.
Mhm.
so that his family could be happy. He was willing to, as we see in earlier timelines, humanity is important to them. He was a human who hated gears. But he is willing to give that up, become a gear himself, so that his family could be happy.
Yeah, like that is the perfect act of redemption,
I,
showing
I think it's very hard to
love is.
disagree with that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what ISWAP is to me, and that's why I'm a huge fan of it. Because it's a sign of love to me, and I feel like it really does fit in with Kai's character. And also helps add to the guilt we see in Overture. Like, your son hates you.
Yes.
Also, you took his eye and some
Yeah.
of his powers.
Yes.
Like, yeah,
Also-
me too,
also,
Kai.
like, there's really easy to and excuse me, sorry. In a way to bring it back to Devil May Cry yet again, the whole idea of like the successor of like one of the main characters who has like some kind of blood connection to some kind of higher power, quote unquote, like tapping into some kind of familial blood related stronger power that's not normal to this world, and um seeing how that falls off generation after generation, and seeing what happens when the new person, the new protege, the new person to like potentially take up any kind of mantle is biologically the most human compared to the rest of them, and thus so is able to embody that the most and have a fresh new perspective on some of these older characters who may or may not still be living in some kind of older ways, or might introduce them to newer ways of thinking, more human ways of thinking. We see Nero do this most prominently in DMC5 when he just says, you're both morons. You can settle your differences without having to kill each other. Like, we just have to beat it into you, I guess.
Mhm.
And with Sin, he's able to mend those wounds, not only with Kai and their entire family, but also he's able to pick away at Sol and some of his insecurities regarding allowing new people in that he doesn't immediately trust, and whether or not that was a good idea, who's to say? But still, Sin has filled that role many times already, and him being more in touch with his humanity and more in touch with his instinctual emotions, whether or not he's able to understand them himself, is very protag energy, and he kind of does fill that role at the same time. Like, oh, there's there's this power lurking behind this eye patch. I can't take it off, otherwise something bad might happen. But he's also just likable for all those same reasons, and it's easy for people to attach themselves onto him because he just says the things that everybody is already thinking most of the time.
Which, like, there's a unique place for somebody like that in Guilty Gear where characters tend to be, and I say this with the complete, like, utmost love in my heart, a little, like, melodramatic and stuff, to have someone just very matter-of-fact, down-to-earth. But this is getting a little bit away from Ky now.
A little
I
bit.
would
My apologies.
No, you're all good. It was a good point.
Ky would love a side tangent that was dedicated purely to his son.
True.
True.
Yeah.
I would approve of what I'm doing.
Did we have any more Overture things before we went to Xrd?
Nope.
Might be good to exit.
I might have the weirdest side thing that just has to do with Kai's themes, like with the
Oh.
Holy Orders, the song specifically.
Oh, yeah.
Recently, I did a re-listen, so I'm not a music person. He's the one with the music theory here.
Hello.
Yeah. I did a
Always.
re-listen of base Holy Orders, and I listened to Overture Holy Orders more times than I care to admit. If you listen to base Holy Orders, there's less instruments in it, and it sounds lonely. Like, it is a constant anthem, and that anthem is this path that Ky is on, you know, seeking this justice. As the joke I made earlier, it's his Holy Orders to continue. And then in Overture, it gains a lot more instruments because he now has, like, a platform. He is figuring out what he wants to do on that path, which we later see be expressed with Magnolia Eclair and Roar the Spark. But it becomes, like, more loud, more boisterous, because I have multiple reasons why I think this is, but one of them is, like, he has figured out what he wants to do and how he's going to do it. You know, he's in a position where he can. I also do think it's more bolstered to kind of tie in with the whole, like, unwillingness to be king. It's kind of... I personally view more of Magnolia Eclair, but it's like trying to drown out everything else. Like, the world got a lot more noisier, and these new interpretations and, like, directives that he has to, like, follow are around. But the same anthem and, like, rhythm of Holy Orders is still there in the background. It is still guiding him on this path to continue forward. And I think I explained it really poorly,
No,
but
you're
it's
good.
like
No, I got it.
the jump between those two songs is so crazy.
No, you're absolutely right.
I think you made
Thank
a
you,
pretty fair
thank
point
you.
with that.
Yes, thank you.
Did anybody else have music thoughts, I guess, while we're on this?
Holy Orders is the best song ever made.
This is true.
I will always yell at the beep 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 on Roar of the Spark. Thank you.
I have like a thread about Frisia,
I
but I
learned-
don't think it's the place.
I hate learning about this, but now I have to curse you all with the knowledge. In Roar of the Spark, there's a humming whistle every like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, I
And
learned
it
this
bugs
because
the hell out of me. It hurts, but I love Roar of the Spark so much.
I once mistook it for my college breaks when I first started listening to the soundtrack like years ago. Oh, to the Strive soundtrack specifically. Yeah, I literally thought my college breaks were messing up.
I
never
know
come
it's
up to
probably
go.
there to like kind of imply that like, oh, Ky is so powerful, like the lightning is crackling from like his fingers,
Bro
and like
has
it's
to
like,
notice.
but it's like, dude, you're giving me tinnitus.
He's breaking the audio
Guys,
equipment.
it was secretly Kai just has tinnitus this whole time.
He would.
I also
love Kai.
I think it's really funny how Ky has the most themes related to himself out of any other character, like even more than Sol. If you count versus themes, because he has like 6 or 7 songs of his own, if you want to include the Korean version of Accent Core, and 9 rivalry songs.
Daisuke treats him right. It's his baby boy.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know, Kai's whole, like, a lot of his arc is, like, mental anguish and, like, figuring himself out, and what kind of low-key describes that better than, like, music.
It's so
True. It's almost like music makes the world go round.
Yeah, let's go.
Guilty Gear
Powerpuff
would never
Girls.
know anything about music.
I think they would.
But yeah, now I think it's finally time
Yeah.
to move into the most modern versions of Ky, which are Xrd, Ky, and Strive Ky.
Yeah, I was gonna say that because it is getting late and I would not want to hold people up too much.
I don't have a bed.
Woman.
But
And as by the way, Ky's hair is incredible in Xrd. I really
Yeah.
adore on a personal level. I know it's that, like, oh, this is actually foreshadowing for his Gearification, because gears have hair that grow really
Just
long.
looks good.
But I
Sure,
really like that Ky has a gender ambiguous appearance in Xrd. He's wearing a skirt. He's got a ponytail. He's still like unmistakably masculine, but it's like such a breaking of gender conventions in the way that only metal can do. And I really commend Daisuke for taking his main character and dressing him like that. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah, I do think Xrd probably has one of like the best designs. I kind of like bounce
Agreed.
between Xrd and Overture Ky being my favorite design ones, but both are so good. Give him his long hair back, Daisuke, for me.
I'm right there with you.
I hate the cop-out excuse that Ky cut his hair 2 days before we started recording in Strive. Like, come on.
Yeah.
No, I'm right there with you guys. I think Xrd Ky is easily my favorite design for him. I think it really captures the sort of elegance that is also just evocative of like the restrained brutality that underlies him. But then Overture is also. Oh, sorry.
No. You are mid-sentence. Keep going.
Overture, I think, is also a really strong design, like you guys identified too, because then that's more touching on where he is mentally in that game appropriately, where it's like the burden of being a public figure is now wearing on the rest of his life.
Yeah, that actually is like what I was gonna say. Is like Xrd Ky is really good because it shows like the growth and the healing that he has gone through between those two games. Because like Overture, yeah, he's a public figure, but he's going through it. But in Xrd, like, he has that connection with, like Sin and Sol again, and it's like, you can tell he's getting better, he is caring about his appearance again, and he's, like, refined in that game.
Yes.
Yeah, if I may, what I've been holding off on, when it comes to, sorry, I got distracted by something, Sol and Kai's, rivalry, I do love how it is in, Xrd specifically, like, throughout Sign and, Rev, because, like, the whole... Yeah, they were, like, classic fighting game rivals, but by the time after, like, Overture, they're like, okay, we're, like, actually friends now. They still, like, butt heads and everything, and still kind of tries to deny it in, Sign, even though Kai's like, hey, you're always welcome in our family, like, the whole, when this is over, come home line. And then by the time to, like, get to Rev, where they're just working together, they're like actually being friends. They have the whole scene where they're hanging out in the office and joking with each other and just like actually being able to relax to each other, and Ky being like, yeah, I'm not satisfied with all like how everything ended, but in my mind, like every like grudge and thing, it's all done.
I think the Sol and Ky dynamic is the strongest thing that Daisuke has written outside of like Raven's backstory, and like I really like everything involving Sin. But what I really like is the back and forth that Sol and Ky have, like especially in that liquor scene where
it's such a sweet scene.
I think Revelator is the best thing Daisuke's ever like made. I think it's such a complete product, and I really think that there's such a unique aspect to the relationship, especially in Revelator, where you get the impression that Ky has kind of moved ahead in his character arc more than Sol has.
Oh, very much, yes.
Yeah, and it's that you get this feeling of Sol, this unbeatable, unbreakable guy that you've been following this entire time, is like kind of needy and like it's like really closed off, and it's that Ky's the one that can recognize this in him and be like, I'm gonna lend a hand to you, but you need to help yourself, but I will always provide this home for you. I will always make sure that you feel happy, that there's a family here waiting for you.
Yeah,
and it's so sweet.
Yeah, it's like rivals to found family, except found family then realized they're actually related and it freaked them out.
Also, the fact that Ky gets the most comedic scenes in the entire series related to
Found family hits so hard, and then Elfelt walks in.
Yeah, I mean, they're being chill with each other before they find out.
Yeah, it's a very genuinely... I just kind of love how the relationship evolved to the point, like I mentioned earlier in Strive, so basically calls, like, the Kiske family his family. I just think going from rivals to literal family is a very nice thing.
That's such a good way to put it, Dee, because Sol gave Ky his family and hasn't even realized it yet. And I think once he starts piecing it together, that's where you really see him chill out and strive. And now Sol is this, like, this like rock of a man. Like, he's becoming this like chiller out family guy too. Yeah,
they kind of definitely like treat each other. Like that whole scene in the office with the whiskey. I just think it's a very sweet scene regardless. Basically like, oh yeah, rivalry's over. We're just kind of chilling now. We're friends, and they're teasing each other and all that. It's very fun.
Yeah, they're speaking as if they are at that point very comfortable with who they are, like individually as people, but still like acknowledging like, oh yeah, we're going to butt heads on some of these things, but I know that's just who like they pretty much say like have 5 or 6 different moments where they're just talking, and then one of them just goes, oh yeah, but I know that you're just going to do this, or like, yeah, I pretty much expected you to say something like that, but I'm gonna do this anyway. Like, yeah. This is good stuff. I'm eating this up, like, because they're right.
Kiske, more.
Yeah, no,
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was making a wait more place joke. Continue.
I really think Sign and Xrd are just peak Ky. Like, I think the majority of my favorite quotes from him come from those, and I just have like a fucking whole page basically filled with them.
1,000,000%.
I could start rattling some of them off, but I also just wanted to open the floor before I got into doing that, because I'm sure the quotes will probably invite some discussion, but I didn't want to just like stonewall it.
Go off, because the only quote I would say is this what they call being owned?
That was a good one.
If I could ramble a tiny before we get into the quotes.
Yeah.
There are like a few moments in Xrd as a whole that stick out to me when it comes to Ky. The one I feel like I should bring up the most is fucking Chapter 9, Maelstrom B, when he gets shot. That's the moment that solidified him as the Blorbo for me. And yeah, and it's just like the fact that Ky at that point, like, we literally, the scene before that is the one where Sin calls him like dad for the first time ever, and he gets his wife back, which is crazy for Ky. But it's like, it's the moment that shows, like, I was kind of more talking about in theory with iSwap, just how far Ky was willing to go for his mission and for his family, where he gets murdered by Black Tech, by the secret Illuminati government, because they no longer need him and he was being too annoying. But he comes back from actual death. GG World says that he was shot through the heart, and you see the light leave his eyes in that scene. So he comes back through force, strength of will, and like determination. Like, yeah,
A little bit of
that's the
Gear
scene where he's
strength
revealed as a
in.
gear. Yeah, like
Different.
he's built different. He is not gonna die here, not so close to the end. And it's,
And he
it's
also,
so sick.
and I think that is, he also like straight up admits that he's like, I know I'm being like idealistic and everything, but I'm still gonna stick to my ideals because they're what I want to fight
exactly. Yeah, that's another thing that I think the whole idea of the lawful good character goes so underrated, or just gets kind of undermined in a lot of storytelling, or even in like I don't know, just general character work in like D&D or something. Like, the lawful good person is aware that their ideals are something that can hold them back, or something that, you know, like, even though they know, well, I'm very pious, I'm very like in my own ways about the way that I do things, and I know that that can cause complications for some of these things, but at the end of the day, I always know that what I'm doing is the right thing and is for the benefit of the people that I care about. And if that just means that I have to work harder, and if that just means that I have to go the extra step in order to see these things through, then I'll do it a million times over. And I love when characters are able to do that. I respect that as like just at a human level. And just another reason why I say that there is Ky slander out there, because how do you hear this and yeah, like, just what?
Yeah.
That it.
Okay, that's my second moment I want to bring up is after story A, him and Sol fighting. There we get the absolute wild lore drop that Ky has been holding back against Sol and probably everyone else in the cast this entire time. And the briefest glimpse we get at some semblance of Ky's like actual power is when Sol insults his family and Ky just instantly wrecks him. Like, it's brought up. Why didn't you dragon install? You didn't give me a
You
chance
didn't give
to.
me a chance.
And even then,
Yeah.
then, Sol still goes, "You still didn't fight me, seriously." When Kai's doing all that.
God. Yeah, and to me, like, it brings up an important point. Actually, no, I don't know what I was going there. It brings an important point to me because it kind of contextualizes a bit of Kai's actions if you back in the timeline. Like, remember back in Core when Ky, like, hated Sol's guts and, like, believed that Sol, like, left him in the Order and found out he was a Gear and stole Thunderseal, and yet not once did he go all out. Because if he did do that, he would have been able to arrest Sol or get the answers he wanted, and yet he still
Probably
never
kill
did
him.
it. Yeah,
Yep,
but he didn't do it. He
But-
still
yeah,
lost.
exactly. So, like, Sol brings up right before that fight, like, hey, what happened to that person that I saw out during the war? What happened to that kid that I was scared shitless of? When you approached me when I was trying to steal the fire seal, I thought you were going to kill me, and I was worried that you'd do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And you
I
still
think
held,
also...
and he just felt personally insulted by the fact that he would hold back and deny him that fight, and that's, because I'm sure you guys will talk about that in the Sol episode, but it's partially because he's suicidal, and guilty. But neither here or now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like also with that scene specifically, Sol was talking about when Ky asked him to spar for the first time. He was scared shitless. Like he thought when Ky was like, "Hey, let's spar together," he assumed Ky had figured him out and was going to kill him in front of like everyone like a spectacle. But he didn't.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
that's back then because he didn't know. But like, yeah, he held back.
Mm-hmm. But
Also,
I think...
there's something really like just funny about how Sol is still like to the end always so stubborn about like the way that he feels things should go, or like what he wants out of something without actually saying it, because he'll just say, "Oh well, I want a real fight. I want you to go all out and not have to hold back. Use those tactics that you say that you left behind all those years ago." And Ky pretty much like holds a fake knife up to his neck, like in half a second. It's like, okay, we're done. And Sol just goes, no, wait a minute. I have to say when we start. Like,
I know I insulted your wife and like goaded you to get you to this point, but I didn't hear round start.
Johns.
I didn't hear heaven or hell.
Yeah.
No let's rock happened here. We are not rocking.
Yeah, I just wanted to, before I get into the quotes, unless someone else had something to say.
You guys say you are all good.
I said my two things.
Yeah, but before I get into the quotes, just wanted to circle back to what Wisp was saying and say that a poorer written Guilty Gear would have had Ky abandon his idealism because it would have been conflated with naivete. But Ky doesn't, right? He remains honest and earnest and caring and optimistic to like the nth degree. And I think it really shows how strongly written Guilty Gear is, because it's telling you there is true value to be had in ideals, in believing that there could be a brighter future despite the world around you being in ruins and terrible. Ky's problem wasn't that he was naive on his quest for that future, it was that he was believing that there wasn't a place for him in it. And I think that that's really awesome. Guilty Gear is
so
all
sad
about
for
that
him.
generative selfishness.
Yeah.
He's figuring it out.
He's
We got
learning to love
Strive.
himself.
We got
It's so
Strive.
I was gonna say the only thing that I kind of just got in mind of before the quotes. I also think Ky just seems a lot more like, okay, he's never like been a depressed character, but he's always been a bit uptight. You can see like scenes in Xrd where he starts to relax more, and I just think that's sweet. That's all.
Yeah, no, it is fantastic, and I think that's exactly what we were talking about before, and what I'm going to get into with the quotes here too, is where he's loosening up around Sol, stuff like sharing a drink with him or being really candid. Like I have the one quote for part of that scene where he's like, "You didn't know? I'm actually quite a religious man, Sol," which is like really funny for him to say as a guy who fights directly under the Pope, basically. Of course, I haven't.
There's like 5 crosses on his normal Holy Order garb.
Yeah.
I love how much Ky redefines what Christianity is too, because especially like the U.S. American Christian patriot, whatever, would be like, oh, well, this person's Catholic and they believe this, so I believe that too. And that, like, maybe even Ky of the Sacred Order would be like, oh, well, Ariel's is ordering this, and she's clearly, holy and, like, I must listen to her no matter what. So you have this evolved Ky now where it's like, no, Christianity is whatever I take it to be. It's me guiding my own faith and believing in the goodness of people. And that either Ariel's is a part of that or she's not. I decide my own path. And, like, the old Ky would have obeyed Ariel's no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like, watching Ky get that revelation before the other kings of Illyria is kind of like...
Yeah, and then Leo being like, why aren't you shocked by this? Why are you mad right now?
Ky,
And he's like,
why don't you trust the Pope?
I've
They
been
don't call him
feeling
the First
this,
King
Leo.
for nothing.
Yeah.
Also,
No,
there's one point about like the whole like virtuous, noble, like religious man Ky that like hasn't been like abandoned, but like part of that has kind of been like he's gotten less uptight about it. Every now and again I think back to like the one quote from almost the very end of the Guilty Gear like By Your Side anime intro, where like he's about to face off with Sol and he's like, your sin goes against the grace of God. Like, and I have to wonder, okay, what is the context behind this? Are they...
It sounds cool.
Like,
genuinely for him,
no, it sounds doofy. Like, why? Like, it makes the average... It would make like any almost like average viewer just like think like, well, Sol's really cool. Like,
I'm surprised you have a problem with that and not, oh no, I'm falling. Shut up, you Boy Scout.
I love that one.
The first Ky death.
I will say another reason I really enjoy Ky. I am not really religious anymore, but I was. Oh my god, that's good. But I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school for 13 years, 14 years. So it like kind of all, even if I'm not really, don't consider myself religious anymore, it still has a very like personal touch and feeling to me specifically. Like Ky's, the way he treats his own religion and all that.
I completely and heartily agree. I think it's really nice to see a character recontextualize religion not as a means, like I imagine you probably experienced and I experienced, that to like drive a wedge between people or to put a weight on you or some arbitrary measurement of being like a good person, and instead to be a reason to love and to want to live. Like it was so sick.
I've never really been a religious person either, but I have known a lot of people who do hold their beliefs in like any or so religion a lot closer to themselves in their everyday life. So I guess I just have the I just have the benefit of being woke, I guess, and hearing so many different people out. Yeah, but I have to say, I am also pretty tired of seeing just the very stereotypical, like, person who is just so, like, the average person is just so blind by their religion that they can't see logic. Like, oh, the zombies are coming, or, like, the necromorphs from, like, Dead Space. Like, this is divine this is the step in high evolution. Like, oh my god. Like, I get it. It feels a purpose because like a lot of people hold that so close to themselves that they may or may not be more susceptible to manipulation if the right person is at the top to like just say the right thing that people want to hear and get people to do what they want, get people to think what they want. But it just becomes kind of overplayed, so that when you get an example like this of a number of characters who are openly religious and have that aspect be represented in the world around them, the way that they talk about how they want to be seen by others, and like not being like represented as that, like being like a negative aspect of themselves. I'm just very impressed by that, especially considering there's a lot of Japanese media that kind of does delve into the whole like, oh well, the holy saint-like figures are actually the ones that are like the most willing to corrupt or like have this, or this corruptive force behind them.
Guilty Gear plays him honest, and it's very refreshing.
Yeah, it's kind of like
honest Ky Kiske,
Yeah, when a lot of games be like, oh, final boss is the Pope, it is kind of nice to be like, he is like a religious character who's not being corrupted by things. It's just how he owns his ideals and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when there's like Neil Druckmann talking about like that new Naughty Dog game, and he's like, guys, I'm doing something really different here. I'm making a game about a religion that's fake, and everyone's like, have you never played a JRPG before? Like,
I think also
Dude.
another like cute thing with Ky with like religion and everything is how Sin ended up also like being religious like him, despite the whole Overture thing.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, like it's very, it's like
Oh yeah,
I
think
don't
it's
know,
a very
just
squeaky
grins.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I think it's really awesome too. It harkens to me to another Japanese piece of media also inspired by Christianity, but it really feels like the one quote from Evangelion where it's like anywhere can be paradise as long as you have the will to live. You know, it's really
there's
good.
so many Ava references in Gear. It's crazy. I love
Yeah.
it.
But then it brings me to another quote from Ky that is pretty much like, it feels to me like the same thing. It's one of the other conversations he has with Sol where he's like, tomorrow always comes, Sol. If tomorrow promises to be cold and dark, I cannot stand
Oh,
idly
that's a
by.
very good one, yeah.
Yeah.
The reinstatement of his belief in path.
Even if I know my efforts will come to nothing. I don't expect this world to change tomorrow, but I do hope that today, perhaps my words will reach you. I'll be waiting for you. We're all waiting for you. Once this is
Yeah.
over, come home.
Yeah, and I think that
my
also shows,
goodness.
despite how, like, tough, like, Ky did not have an easy life. He has shit happen to him in every game, like, his whole life. But he always, like, lives by, well, hope. The hope that, like, tomorrow always comes. He doesn't let him drag him down to, like, a degree that he ever just gives up. Like, no matter how much shit is thrown at him, he is just, like, he knows he has to keep going for one reason or another and keep fighting.
Yeah.
I think that quote also like perfectly shows the end of his mentality for Overture.
Yes.
Like, Overture, he's very much like in the moment, and that moment sucks. But here in the tomorrow always comes. He witnessed it for himself, and
Yes.
he believes it.
Yes. No, it's great. I have just a few more quotes to the similar effect of that, where it's like, yeah, just him kind of synthesizing everything that he's learned thus far, and finally finding peace and happiness as a person. Where I really like this one too. They know that my idealistic dreams are only that and can never come true. Yet my people expect from me is not a perfect and just ruler. It's something more. No matter what monsters and demons stand in our way, I have sworn never to give in. That is what my people believe.
Yeah,
Where
that's
it's like,
the
you know,
quote.
Hell yeah.
he's kind of moving beyond being the symbol and recognizing that it's more important for him to be the man. That's more important and powerful than just being hope. And then if anybody had anything to say about that, I just have one more quote after that, and then I'm fresh out of Ky stuff.
I kind of said my piece on that one when we were talking about Maelstrom, so.
Okay, then I'll just do my last quote, and then that is it. But this is another one to Sol Ensign, predictably, where he was like, if only life were simple and the right path was laid out before each of us. But even then, some would leave it, and some would struggle with walking it. Such is human nature. The truth is that no oath will ever be right for all people. Each of us must find the one we are meant to walk, and sometimes that is where none exists. That is what I learned from you. And when I look at you, Sol, I see a man who is afraid. And I think that was it's probably one of my favorite Ky quotes of all time.
I'm kind of laughing because some of these are quotes I specifically put as like the rotating quotes on Ky's
Yeah,
page.
the wiki.
Yeah.
I recognize
I
them.
think they're all very good quotes.
The top bangers.
Yeah, good choices.
Thank you. But yeah, no, I really, really like that one because I think it's evocative of his entire arc, basically, where it's like, you know, I had this crisis of faith. I thought that there was a unilateral approach to justice and morality and living, but because of you, I know now that I need to care more about myself and have that human first approach, that I can still be idealistic, but also I should accept the fact that, you know, not everyone moves the same way, but that we're all trying to build that better world together, and that all we have to do is look out for each other along the way for that justice means fighting to protect people who need help and also fighting for yourself.
Yeah,
No
there's
one-
also the angle
No one
of,
moves like Ky Kiske.
There's also that angle with it of like, you showed me this truth of walking
Yes.
the path, and now I see you struggling, and I'm gonna help
Yes.
you with it.
Yeah, the perfect inversion of their arcs. It's so
Yeah.
sick. Really, really good.
Because like as like
Um,
mentioned earlier, Kai's like arc developed faster than Sol's.
Yeah, yeah. Because he's just a 200-year-old old man who is stuck in his ways and is afraid of thinking about his boyfriend or girlfriend, who are also a bajillion years old.
And we can use that to transition into the end of his character arc, the final Ky Kiske, the one who has learned his life lessons, and who actually doesn't get that big of a role in the story. In Strive, he cut his hair. A greatest sin of all.
True.
And he got banned from G4, which I personally think is kind of hilarious.
I love that Leo was like, you act up way too much, they had to ban you.
Yeah,
This
like,
guy
he
brought up
straight
gear rights to
Yeah,
the
he
fucking
straight up
government.
said I was gonna try and pick up my family again, and they told me I have to go on vacation.
He's such a little fucker, I love him so much.
He is a little shit, and he is not gonna let no government hold him back.
And then he took his dick out for some reason.
I'd say that Ky and Strive, I think he has about maybe 4 big scenes total, and that's, you know,
Yeah,
him
kind of bonding
seeing...
with Jacko.
Yeah, him seeing Sol again and everything involving aerials, where they have that fun banter just like they did in Xrd. I'd say the scene
I haven't
with
even said
Jacko,
anything yet.
which is the thesis of Strive of necessary frivolities. And then, of course, him going God mode against Ino, which is the coolest, hypest shit in the
I'm
entire
so
world.
glad-
Legally required death.
Can I say 2 things that have been on my mind about Strive?
Yes.
Yes.
First
the
one,
thing?
the first one being, Dragon Star's awesome, and I think it's
Yeah.
very interesting how fast his gear cells have gone between the 2 weeks between Xrd and, Strive story, that he gained a dragon install, which is probably showing that, there's something up there that I'm hoping we learn more about in the anime.
If I
Because
may
that
do-
won't seem normal, yeah?
If I may do personal headcanon, I think the reason why he gearified so quickly and so fast and is able to wield it so well is because he has this understanding of himself that every other gear
Ooh,
character
I like
has not.
that.
Dizzy struggles with herself, and especially her pacifism versus the fact that she's capable of such evil. Sin is really in a tumultuous place where he's of like half ashamed that he's a gear because his father won't love him, but half really proud of the fact that he's a gear and that his father will hate him. Like, he's just very conflicted and in a puberty moment, and he's learning to love his gear side with Sol too. And you have Testament, who is just an entire thing of self-loathing and then self-loving. Ky never has that. Ky, like we said really early on with the living weapon, he knows who he is. Ky has always known who he is. And that's why he's able to have this rebirth and is able to be this gear so easily. And why he's also able to help Bridget transition in her story mode, which, oh my god, I cannot believe they gave one of my favorite characters ever the trans moment coming out scene. That's it makes me so happy.
Yeah, my other actually main thought had to do with Bridget. The Bridget scene. I just personally think it's interesting that the whole thing where Bridget is trying to, like, find out about herself and her identity. They chose her to talk to a character who had a crisis that series where he was changing his views and how he sees himself, especially once he gained gear cells, that he had to change his view of himself. Like, maybe, yeah, he's not like a canonically trans character, but still using a character that had some sort of identity change for that conversation, I think is very interesting.
Very
Daisuke
right.
made the
Very
connection
nice.
explicit that, like, gears are meant to represent the minority, which is
Yes.
othered by society, and explicitly tied it to transgenderism. Like,
Yes.
so, like Ky is trans real.
Actually,
like,
sorry, continue.
no, that was about it.
Yeah, and then I have one third thing.
About
About
with
it-
the Bridget one.
Yeah, I was-
Slotted in there. Yeah,
Oh,
Ky
I was-
himself expressing. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, I think you was about to say exactly what I was going to say. Well, he
Yeah.
says even if this body would have turned to gear, implying that he is
Yeah.
still kind of changing.
Yeah. No, like him, like he expressing that he still does have concerns and worries about becoming a gear and less human, and yet he's still on this path. He will still do it. That is what he does.
It's so fucking sick.
I have like, I really don't have a whole lot to say about Strive Kai. Not that I don't think that he's a strong, like he's used well enough in the story. Just that's I mean, you guys have already pretty much said a lot of what there already is. So I guess I think a lot of people give his design change a bit of flack when it comes to like Strive and the overall like everything that Strive wants to be, especially with all of the changes to the characters physically and not, or lack thereof, depending on who you're talking about. But it was something that I really noticed pretty much immediately as soon as they showed off Strive as like a real game with typical Sol versus Ky gameplay, like, oh look, you can break the wall now. I saw his design, and well, first thing was like, well, what's that sword? But I saw like the way that he still had the same robes, I want to say, or same like garments of his old design to maintain that regal look, still holding true to like who he was, who he always has been. But kind of like, I don't want to sound like a total fucking nerd when I say like kind of like a Luke Skywalker aspect, where there's like
that makes sense.
beneath that surface you see like an entirely different like reflection of something within that is like ever changing, or could have the potential to change over time. So it's him kind of loosening up a little bit, especially in his stance, the way that he holds himself, the way that his shirt's like slightly unbuttoned, but also showing that there is potential for him to keep on growing. It's not just all like, well, I mean, yeah, his outfit is pretty much just black and white, but like his worldview, like it doesn't have to just be as black and white as it once was. And sure, we may have already gotten there when it came to Xrd, pretty much, but now that I think Strive is a lot more comfortable in actually making drastic changes to the characters and like having faith that people will recognize them. I think that was a good time for them to decide, okay, let's actually like commit to these changes, because Sol's Strive design was actually based on how his character looked in Vast Edge, and you can even see that in some of the early beta screenshots where like he's fighting fake ass ugly Sol. Like he had the same jacket and like the handcuffs on the sleeve and the weird thing on his ponytail, but then they still, like, for his base design in Xrd, stuck with the more traditional Xrd style. But in the story, he still has that same jacket. So I kind of wonder, okay, well, when did they go back on that? Okay, but Strive, like they really committed to making a lot of changes for a lot of characters, and I think that Kai's was just something that like instantly, like I knew, like, oh, okay, I see exactly what they're doing here.
Speaking of First Oak, mine was also going to segue something else, so don't worry about me. I'm just popping.
Oh, okay. The only other part of it was just that I think another pretty big moment that he has that I feel kind of goes a bit underrated is when he's talking with Jacko about how much he knows about Sol when they're in the airship on their way over to the floating United States like White House. And just talking about the time that Sol once broke into their his liquor cabinet only to grab like the shittiest, cheapest beer on the shelf, because it's what he always knew, even though he had, like, in their royal cabinet, they had the most expensive bottles of wine available, like in their nation. Just he stuck true to what he is, what he likes, and he didn't really need to explain himself beyond that. And it is more of a Sol moment, but it was a way for him to kind of say, I trust this man. I know what he is doing. I have faith in like what he is capable of doing. If I have an idea of like how he would deal with this situation, I feel like that is likely going to be the case. So let's not worry too much about what we can't control on our way there.
Yeah, definitely. I do genuinely think that's a very sweet scene. Another scene involving both of them, the one I said I wanted to segue to, because I kind of forgot about when I was talking, It's another one in that final battle. Ino showing everyone a perfect wood, but the only people who don't cry are Ky and Jacko, specifically.
Yeah!
And I think part of that is
Yeah.
Ky has what he considers, like, his perfect wood. He's happy with his family now. You couldn't show him a wood that he could still perfect. And also, I think another way to look at it is, like, through his own religious beliefs. Ino's not his god. She's not gonna give him his perfect wood. His god, probably in his mind, already gave him what he wanted: a family, people that love him.
Yeah. And like with that, showing Ky a perfect world, but a part of Ky's arc is realizing that like idealism and like this perfect picture isn't what's going to work in reality, and that reality is actually like, just it's not what he knows that that's not like what he truly wants, and that he is content and happy with where he is currently.
Yeah, I do think like that scene has like multiple implications to it, and I think it is very cool. No bias.
I think the implication that I got initially, because it's kind of it's a very, very cool moment when you look at it as like just blunt, this is something that is occurring. We're not really going to gloss over it too much, but it's part of the build-up. It's part of the drama, as like the best theme that came out of this entire game plays for like 2 minutes. I initially got from that when Ino is talking about how she now has the powers of essentially the world and the powers that and the people that inhabit it, or like she is the world, and she also like embodies like the powers that like create the world, and she wants to give that to everybody. And pretty much everybody like in the scene is like, oh well, everything is going to get destroyed, but she just wants to like observe like the end that might come to, what people might do if they were given the chance to just create or destroy like to that same extent as she is able to. Like what can humanity do with this kind of power? Because she still at that point doesn't really know how it's going to end, or why it is going to get to the end that she has foreseen for almost her entire life. But I got from that, well, one, it's amplified a lot for the sake of drama and like the weight that is being put on Kai's shoulders. But also in that point, I just kind of thought, oh well, because he is still so true to his ideals of hope and humanity's ability to just work itself into a brighter future that like is ideal for everybody. It's still a pretty stubborn way of thinking that if we move forward, if we still just stay true to ourselves, that things will work out, that people have the capacity for good. Like he is even aware that this is not entirely realistic, but it doesn't really like it doesn't really keep him from like doing the things that he knows is right. So the fact that he does not share that same sentiment, the way that he doesn't cry when that reality is brought upon to him, is like, oh well, he has just always known in his heart that like this is not the way that we can achieve this, and I stand against this because this is just not how people can reach their potential.
Yeah, I just
I'm probably just throwing stuff at the wall and
no,
seeing
I like genuinely like. Yeah, I enjoy that. Like I said, I think that scene could have so many implications, and all of them could be right. I think it's like such a good scene, just overall.
Yeah.
All in all, like with all the different interpretations of the scene, it shows Ky like
no matter what.
Yeah, like it shows that he is still true to himself, regardless of what's going on.
He ain't need no Eno. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's like that one scene from Steven Universe.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I've seen
anyone
worse.
Look at this man and call him lame when he's walking down God herself, and while the entire world cries and just says, "No, you move out of the way."
Yeah,
exact line only all powerful.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh shit."
In conclusion,
Ky Kiske is pretty cool, guys.
Not to be a nerd, but that matchup is Ky favored.
I
This
know,
is-
5K
Yeah.
destroys, you know.
5K, my beloved.
Yeah, but
Alright, so,
that's cool.
Kai is very cool. And with that, I think we've wrapped up quite basically every entry.
Yeah.
The last restaurant that's in town closes in a couple
Yes,
minutes.
please.
Oh,
And
my
I have
God.
not
Food,
eaten
I want you
today.
to eat.
Wait.
Go
Oh,
eat.
So, but if anyone has final words to say about Kai, now is
Yeah.
the time.
He's
Uh,
cool.
Guilty Gear Dual Rulers, he's getting married to Dizzy. Yippee, 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 yippee.
I-
Soren, do you have
uh,
anything else to say,
Seven.
or?
My
Rest
final
in peace,
Thank
thoughts.
you for my life.
Oh.
Thank you for my
What's this?
My final thoughts are: one, RoboKai is overrated, and two,
Oh my god.
and two. That's why I brought this up at the very end, so we don't
Mhm.
have time for you to tell me that I'm wrong,
Holy
because I'm not.
shit.
Your truth.
And two, I did do a bit of research a long time ago, wondering, okay, how exactly, what is the correct way of actually saying this guy's name? Because the series itself just changes its mind every now and again. So I decided that the only way that would satisfy me was if I looked into one of the two people that inspired his name, one being Kai Hansen and the other being Michael Kiske of Halloween, which Daisuke clearly fucking loves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am like, okay, well, I don't really know too much about this guy. I know that his name is of German origin. I guess you could say it the way that you pronounce it, with a bit of a German accent, which would be Michael Kiske. But like, no one really seems to want to pronounce it like that. So I look up a bunch of
Kiske.
different interviews and like footage of things of Michael Kiske, like that exist out there. Everyone pronounces his last name differently, so I'm like,
You want to hear a fun fact real quick?
and he doesn't correct
Yeah.
anybody. Like, oh, Michael Kiske is here, like, to talk about their new tour. Like,
Wait, real quick on top of this, when you like hear something funny? I went through every time they say Ky Kiske's last name in English. They're not consistent in game either.
No, they are not. Because in Xrd, it's
the most
Kiske.
like canon,
and then-
or the most often said one, but they are not consistent.
Sean Chiplock, you are a fucker, but at least you say Kiske, so you're on my side for a temporary bit.
So that's why I was laughing. I had the same thing happen to me.
I say Keith because
I say
my cat's
this
name's
rolls
Kiki.
off my tongue.
my cat's named
the
Kiki. I already
best.
have the key part.
Mhm.
Kiske.
I'm pretty sure I say it differently every single time, but people
No,
know
I-
what I mean.
Kyle.
Ky Kiske.
Ky Kiske.
Kai Kiske.
Ky Kiske.
I have one final thought before we close
Mm-hmm.
it out. We didn't talk about his gameplay, guys. He's a shoto.
Yeah, no,
Rest in
but
peace,
he has.
Reed Feather.
He's a shoto. He's a shoto, and I think it's hilarious that in his first 3 iterations, they couldn't decide what kind of wacky overhead special move they wanted to give him.
Yeah.
Because
Read the
because
stuff.
needle spike
Needle
in Missing
Spike.
Link with like 15 frames, but it's like minus 21 on a hit. So
Yeah.
Missing
Have you
Link.
seen
It's for
Ky JS disjointed hurt box in Missing Link?
yeah, no, oh yeah, that hurtbox is actually insane. And then they gave him Crescent Slash in X, which no one really remembers, but it basically does the exact same thing as Greed Sever, only it's like 25 frames instead of 18, and it gets pushed away so far from faultless defense. So rest in peace, Greed Sever, the best version of the overhead.
Yeah, we didn't get to cover literally everything with Kai, but that's
Yeah,
alright.
there's a lot to cover.
I hope that anyone that's watching this, I think I'm definitely gonna split it up into 2 parts, or hell, maybe I'll just make it a 4-hour episode. You guys
Oh
deserve it.
god. That's
Thank
I
you
didn't realize how long we've yapped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us. I
Thank
am
you for
very
having us.
honored.
No, like actually, like thank you
Yeah,
for like hosting this and getting everyone together for it.
I
Like, unironically.
appreciate it. You are doing some God's work with this podcast.
If you are watching this, please, if any of this interested you, please take the time to read or watch Kai's story. Pick up Ky Kiske. I think 5K RTL combos are fun. His grinders are extremely fun in Xrd. I think they're really flashy looking. Kai is always good in a game when the system mechanics are broken, so he was broken during Wild Assault days. And in Xrd he's a top 6 category character, so if the system mechanics are good, Kai is good, so you know what, you have a safe bet if you pick him. Shout out to Danny. Shout out to Kensei. I hope your girlfriend is having a good time. Yeah. And Ky Kiske, thank you for helping me figure things out about my own gender. I love you.
Shout out to Rin also for like being the
And
only
Rin.
person who I can like
Yeah,
actually
oh
watch
my
clips of.
Yeah, if you play Kai competitively, thank you for letting me save your clips so I can share those combos later.
To
Alright.
for Arc World Tour, baby.
Hell yeah.
Alright, RTLing out of here. Bye everyone, thanks for watching!
Goodbye.
Bye.